when you do get a chance to go out on the water, make sure you stay focused. Work hard. Okay. Keep these disciplines even when it's difficult. Remember why you're there. You're going to get cold. You're going to get tired. It might be a nasty, miserable day. And maybe it's the last 5 minutes of the trip. We're going to be heading in soon, but you're just looking for that one bite, man. That one bite will change your entire day. It may change your entire life, man.
Hey,
you get a new PB, you'll be on your ride home, man. All your friends are calling you up, who's congratulating you on Facebook, and it's great. It's something that the Togger community really celebrates together.
Expeditions Fly Fishing with Joey X. Now he is offering trips on the main stem of the Delaware River in New York. Fully licensed guide for New York State. He is our first New York guide. Already booking trips for this spring. He's looking to start in March. If you're looking to book a drift boat fly fishing trip, this is the guy to go with. He's the new guy with us now. Joey X, Expeditions Fly Fishing. Reach out to him and book your trip immediately because he's also booking his trips up fast. Like I said, gonna start in March. So Expeditions Fly Fishing.
Hello and welcome to episode 90 of the NJ Multi-Species Podcast. I'm your host, Joe Santiago. As always, my partner, Chris Pereira. And we have a very special guest today. Our first in-person podcast ever with Mr. Frank Mihalic. Frank, nice to have you back on the show.
Thanks, Joe. Good to be hanging out with you guys when we're not on deck throwing crabs at each other.
I think everything looks a little different today, Joe. Loosen up a little bit, buddy.
Don't be scared.
I am not scared. So
I am a little bit.
We are here to do Frank's Blackfish seminar in person, which a lot of people come to see every year. Right, Frank? You want to talk about some of the seminars you're doing right now?
Well, I do a targeting trophy blackfish seminar that over the years, it's really changed a lot. I really update it now. I evolve it constantly over the years. I also enjoy how to target trophy fluke in the backwaters as well as on the reefs. And there's some different subjects that I cover, but this is my bread and butter. I mean, you guys have each shared a deck with me. I am very passionate about my togging. So naturally, this hits a little bit close to home.
Oh, yeah. I was just telling you before, I fish a lot. I mean, people look at stuff I post or whatever. They're like, how do you fish this much? But when it comes to something specific like targeting trophy blackfish, I mean, I as much fishing as I do, I can't touch the amount of information that you have. Even your presentation probably only scratches the surface of what's in your head.
Well, I'm really lucky because I share decks on great boats with phenomenal black fishermen. I mean, guys that have been doing it so much longer than me that it's really humbling that they will even talk to me, but to have these conversations and to share this information with me so that I can pass it on to others, it's pretty cool. It's a very humbling thing for sure.
Yeah, and we thank, as multi-species anglers, we thank you and guys like you who are dedicated to very specific types of fisheries that are willing to share some of the information, because we try to absorb it all and use it during that time when we're talking. Blackfish, one of our favorite fish, honestly.
Yeah, you're saving us time.
Oh, yeah, cutting that learning curve by
30 years.
Well, I really do. I cut right to the bone, man. I'm not holding nothing back. I'm going to tell you every little secret, every little thing, why I do this, why I do that. I'm not holding these secrets back so I can charge you money to go out on a super pool day, and I can win the pool and take everybody's money. It's like that. That ship has sailed. I really get a lot of enjoyment out of getting texts from people like, "Yo, man, I got my first double-digit fish. Your seminar really helped," or "Thanks for answering that question and telling me about this and that." And I really get a lot of enjoyment out of that. And like I said, as you do get a little bit older, I mean, we're all going to leave something behind one day. It would really be cool of me to, leave something behind it and help future generations of toggers, because what I pass along is really going to help guys like you easily surpass the amount of trophy blackfish that I caught. Your numbers are going to put my numbers to shame if the fishery holds up.
We hope.
Hey, I since you said that, I'm glad I could bring you a little bit of joy on that last trip, because I literally, what you're saying right now happened in real time. I mean, Frank invited us on Fishing Fever, which is a boat that, I mean, you can't get on it unless someone invites you, really. I mean, how else are you going to get on? And
I'm a lucky guy.
And Fish Finders, Garrett, they had some extra spots. Frank invited us on. We got to meet those guys. Garrett's coming on the podcast in a couple of weeks. Yeah. And literally right off the first bat, I mean, I'm sitting there ready to fish. Frank kind of comes over, says it's crowded, tells me to get on the other side. I went right where he told me. First crab. I mean, I told the story already, but 15-pounder, that's my personal best by a long shot. And I'm just glad that I could bring some joy to Frank, because he walked.
Honestly, biggest compliment to me. Biggest compliment to me. When I'm on deck and I see other guys catch big fish, I remember my first trophy blackfish. I remember it. I was on the deck at a Fishmonger with Jerry, and when that fish hit the deck, that was an all-star crew that day. I mean, if I started naming names, everybody would know every single one of them. And when that fish hit the deck, every single guy stopped, came over to me, shook my hands, gave me a hug, congratulated me. That meant the whole world to me. That meant everything to me. And that, it's funny how you kind of stay in that moment and you just want to pass it along, because you worked damn long and hard for that first double digit, brother. They don't come easy.
Oh, and on all seriousness, I mean, thank you, because I'm not just saying it. I used the rig that you told me about to try to use. That's what I was using. I took a lot of the things that you've told me over a couple of times we've talked, and it all pieced together with a little bit of luck. Obviously, there's always some luck involved, and that's that. And I'll never forget that fish, obviously. And I do thank you. Like, I thank you, and I thank all the other guys that share any kind of information with us for anything, really.
Tom Daffin, how about that?
Absolutely.
Taking us to where they live, man.
I have that video of him getting that blackfish out of the wreck, and that's still that was one of the coolest things I've ever seen.
The captain,
fishing. But the thing that makes you I've sat in on your seminar. The thing that makes you different is, if you're interested in like learning how to blackfish and fill your cooler, the Frank Mihalic seminar is not for you. The Frank Mihalic seminar strictly concentrates on targeting trophy tog and waiting for the one bite, pretty much.
Yep.
So if you're like looking for roasters and, fill the cooler, this isn't for you.
Yeah, it's not.
Frank is looking for giants.
I mean, you probably now 50% of people just turned it off because they just want to catch.
Well, yeah, I mean, Frank is after monsters. This is going to show how to catch monster blackfish.
It's very specific, and like you mentioned before, and it goes for pretty much all fish. When you get to a certain size, it might as well be a different species of fish. Mm-hmm. Take a regular size blackfish, whatever size range you want to give that, I don't know, 1 to 9 pounds.
Yeah, say like when they're up to like, 1 to 9 pounds. They're like little ones.
Yeah, and that's one species, but then you start getting 10 pounds plus, you're going to battle with a completely different fish. I mean, they're biting different. And you get into all that in the presentation as well. So,
well, there's a lot of things we need to address, man. We need to address, tackle, your rod, your gear, your hooks, your rigging, your knots that you use. And then it's a matter of your mindset. Like, where is your head at, bro? Because if you think this is going to be easy, just shut it off right now. This is not for you. This is going to be, you're going to suffer a lot of hours without getting bit. But when you get that bite, because if I go out on a fishing trip, I'm only looking for one bite a day. If I get the right bite one time, that's where I want to be. And learning this, I mean, this doesn't come easy. This comes from guys like Tom Daffin and Jerry Passerino from Fishmonger, that when they fish, they're looking to fill up the boat with fish for their crew. But I'm very lucky that I can watch what these guys do, and they see the passion in me, so they share with me on a bit of a different level the most minute details, even if it's just understanding why. Like, why is this happening at this stage in the tide? What do we got to do to get the fish starting to chew? Then look, at the streets, and they're feeling along really pretty good, and all of a sudden they stop. Well, what do you do now? You pick up and move? Probably not. Might be the time when the big fish are coming out to eat.
Well, and that's a big part of it. Like, if you go out blackfishing on a buddy's boat, like someone who someone who owns their own boat goes out on the weekends, or you have your own boat, you go out on the weekends. That's one of the biggest things, especially in saltwater fishing, with the fish stop biting. Is it the tide? Is it the current? Is it over here? Did we fish this spot out right now? Should we move? Should we not? That's a huge part of it. I mean, probably the most important part, because if you're not where the fish currently are, or they're not chewing in that spot, I mean, you don't have a chance. If they're going to chew in a little bit for some reason, then you stay. But how would you know that? It's only experience that's going to give you any inkling.
Stages at a tide, you want to put some time in it and try to build a bite. Other stages at a tide, when they should be chewing and you're there for 15 minutes and nobody's got a hit, it's probably time to just move on. But you're right, it actually does change with the wind and the tide. And that changes with the location. Like, we fish Reef Site 11 down off of Delaware, in the mouth of Delaware Bay. The way the tide and the current swings and changes in there, there's times when the tide is going out, where all of a sudden the tide will start going in and the boat will swing the other way, but the current is changing on the top, but the tide's still going out on the bottom. It's so bizarre, and it's very unique to that one particular spot. And these are, like I said, these captains, man, they spend their life on the water. Captain TJ runs Legal Limit down there, Bob Coate, Adam Baum. These guys, they all have their little pet spots that they seem to know so well. And oh man, I'm just lucky to be able to tie into some good fish for them sometimes.
Another thing that I always remember that you taught me that sticks with me is, you said people, they change their bait too often, and usually you get that peck, and it stops, and you said, okay, most guys reel up now and change bait, but that's actually the moment a big fish may have moved in and pushed all the little ones off.
Mm-hmm. And that's something we're going to cover in the seminar. But that philosophy of, using whole crabs, I mean, does it get the fish excited? Do they come over and start biting right away? Maybe not. But if I'm fishing a nice 3-4 inch white legger, and I, hook it on the V-rig and I step on it a couple times and throw it in the bottom, even if I get a couple pretty good hits, I probably still have enough of that crab on each of these two hooks that if a big blackfish does see this and he comes over and pushes the smaller blackfish off, there's probably enough left on those hooks. Plenty for him to eat.
He might just the same one might want to come back and finish his meal too. Who knows?
Absolutely.
I mean, no.
Once you swing, it's all over.
Right. And you know what? That one I caught that day, the big one, I missed the first hit, but I didn't fully swing. I did like a quarter swing. I almost did it. I think I would have ruined that. I don't know if it was the same fish, but it was pretty quickly after that I hooked up with it. And I just kept thinking, like, man, if I had less time on the water doing this and I did a full swing on that first one, that fish probably would not have happened. And maybe no one would have caught it. Might have just scared them off.
You're lucky it came back. It might have been a small fish pecking away at it, and maybe you halfway lifted and missed, and it hit the bottom, and maybe the big fish came right over and ate it.
Yeah, I don't think when I started going, I don't think I even got the sinker up. I think I had enough slack that I but it all worked out. So that's why. But watching you that day with the whole crabs and just waiting out, because there was times where you weren't catching anything with that whole crab, and a couple of us were catching some shorts. We had action. And we're like, we're having fun. We're occupied. You just stayed. You didn't even consider switching over to join like the short action. You stuck with what you're doing. And then sure enough, we stopped catching them then. And you, I believe, swung over like four like big keepers, like not double digit fish, but like big keeper, like in a row.
I didn't get any really big ones that day. You wanted to pull that day, bro.
But I'm saying the point is, like, you stuck with that whole crab and doing what you do while everyone else was kind of like getting in on some short action, and it paid off. And obviously, I don't have to imagine that's happened plenty of times. That's why you're doing it. Yeah. You know it's probably going to happen.
Well, there also was that period where there was a pretty hot jig bite, and there was a 10-pounder came up, and he still didn't move. He stood right there with the same.
That's kind of,
put me in the corner. I go to work.
And he said, he was telling me it's slack tide first 20 minutes. I know what's going to happen. He's just like, he don't care. He ain't switching.
Yeah, you're kind of like, Frank, you want to try a jig? No. I'm just going to do that.
Man, I know who the best jig fishermen are. I know a guy who's a phenomenal jig fisher. And he goes at it a little differently. And it just so happens he manufactures jigs. Dante Soriente, great dude. Dante will fish a jig with a smallish whole crab, like maybe a 2-inch whole crab, and he'll put that jig in a leg hole and out through the shell, and he'll fish it like that. And he's excellent at hooking and landing big fish. And he's a really good dude, and that's his thing. But when it comes to fishing a jig, I like it, but it's like, in my opinion, it's like taking a knife to a gunfight. I don't go out there to lose. When I lose a fish, bro, I take it really personally. I get upset. I look at what I did wrong, where my fail point was. I analyze it, overanalyze it. I can tell you fish that I lost 10 years ago. I swear. And I can tell you what I changed. I can tell you one trip that I went on. I blew my rod up. My reel broke. It was horrible. On the way home, I'm calling Joe Zagorski, asking him what kind of reels he's using, what kind of rods he's using. On the way home, I'm calling a guy. I'm having 2 custom Blackfish rods built. I'm calling the rep from Daiwa. I ordered 2 reels. By the time I got home, I spent like $1,800. But a couple weeks later, I was all set. I wasn't playing no more.
Hey, and that's a big part of the game, is just the mindset. If you don't trust your gear, I mean, you're starting your handicap right off the beginning. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I mean, I know exactly what you're saying. Like, when I love using the jig for tog fishing, and I have fun doing it, but while I'm doing it, in the back of my head, there's just this thought of like, oh God, I hope I don't regret this. I hope I don't huck into something huge near something sharp and just regret.
That's the thing, sometimes we're fishing old natural bottom, an old coral bed or a mussel bed or something where there's really not much for them to get into. Yeah. And I mean, I was one time, I think the week before I fished with you, I was fishing with Adam Bomb, and we were set up on a wreck, and where I was fishing, I was actually dropping in, and they told me about this before this spot, but I never heard about it. But I was dropping my bait into the bottom, and it gets to near the bottom, and I would feel like, dink, and it would go like another 10 feet, and it went in there, and I feel a big fish. And I started getting them off the bottom, and it was like I had them on a rope. It was like I had them like 10, 15 feet off the bottom, and like I had them on a rope. Well, this happened like 3 times. Throw a jig out, hook up with the jig gets cut off. Captain's looking at me, he goes, all right, current's changing, wind's changing, we got to re-anchor, everybody pick up. So I get rebaited, boom, boom, boom. He pulls up, resets the anchor, comes back. He's about 30 feet past the spot we were on. I drop it to the bottom. I promptly pull up a 17-pounder. As soon as my crab hit the bottom, 17-pound Blackfish. I'm in the corner, double it, boom, boom, boom. where the captain had me sitting, I was dropping my bait directly into, this was an old clammer, and it had clam boxes on the back of the dredge, in the back of the boat, where I was actually dropping my bait into steel cages, hooking the big fish that live in the cage, not being able to get them out of the cage and having to break off. And I didn't realize what it was until afterwards, when I kind of had to replay it through my head, and I kind of had to ask the captain. And Tom Daffin often told me about this spot where if you drop into the cages, there's big fish that live in there that you'll never get out.
They literally can't get out, right? They're in these, like, they got in there and they were small. There was so much food. They stayed there, ate.
And they're pretty big. I mean, they're pretty big cages.
And I think someone told me that they spoke to divers that could confirm this. Like that's actually what happened.
I've heard that one of them's a state record fish too. That's in the cage.
I mean, if I go down there,
shut up.
If I go scuba diving and I see a state record size blackfish stuck in a cage, I'm going to cut the cage and let it out. I mean, come on. But let's get into it. All right, let's get it going. Let's see.
NJFishing.com, 27 years is the number one leading resource in freshwater and saltwater fishing in New Jersey. Head on over to NJFishing.com. Totally free to register with Jerry Zagorski, and gives you access to all the archives of freshwater and saltwater separately. And also, if you're looking for a party or charter boat, it lists all of them on there and where they are. NJFishing.com. Check them out immediately.
Piece it together.
Okay, guys, so here's my targeting trophy blackfish seminar, which I've had a lot of people call me and ask me about, and I hope they can enjoy this. Let's talk tog. I mean, what constitutes your trophy? Everybody has their PB. Everybody's fighting for a number. In New Jersey, you get a skillful angler reward program if you catch an 8-pounder. We don't really look at 8-pounders. Double-digit fish are truly special. They fight different. They will find your tackle's weak point, and they will absolutely break your heart.
Yeah.
And I can't say that enough. They will break your heart, and you'll kick yourself forever.
Oh, yeah.
Ken Westerfeld's world record out of Ocean City, Maryland, 28 pounds, 8 ounces. The fish was 23 years old.
Wow.
Are there 30s? Yeah, man, there's 30s. We're talking about the cages? Yeah.
You really think there's a 30 living in a cage, right? I mean,
I don't know if it's in a cage, but I've spoken to divers that have seen fish that I've seen guys look at blackfish that were so big that they had to look at it 3 times to confirm it was actually a blackfish. They actually thought it was something else.
And I mean, guys will exaggerate, but
That's
I mean,
crazy.
Look, like, where do you draw the line? If there's a 28-pounder, there's probably a 29-pounder. If there's a 29-pounder, there's probably a 30-pounder, right?
Yeah. Especially down south. I mean, you know, we catch plenty of keepers. I mean, all this preparation. I mean, who really cares to work so hard to catch these fish? Well, that would be me because I'm a little kooky. But we catch plenty of keepers. Nobody cares about the keepers. Why do we fish with this gear and with this tackle? It's simple, because regular tackle just will not hold up to huge blackfish. You may get lucky. You may see the guy with the fluke rod who catches a keeper here in Bruno saying hi. But for the day in, day out, that's just not going to happen. That he's going to catch a lot more fish if he actually focuses on his gear.
Yeah.
Every single trip, every single fish is practice for a big fish. The way you bait, the way you drop in, the way you set the hook. You don't know if that fish is a trophy fish until you set the hook. When you feel the bite, you set the hook and you lock in with that rod and you get on that reel and you cork that rod over, and then you know how big the fish is. But practice on every single fish so that you'll reach that muscle memory so you can just do it automatic. I mean, Joe, you fished next to me all day. Chris, you were on the other side of the deck. Did I look like I was on autopilot with that rod in my hands?
It comes very natural to you, which, you know, with that amount of experience, it better at that point. But yeah, you look like, and I tell this to people about anything, really. Like I teach some sports and stuff, and you just tell the kids when they're first learning, they can't do it. It's a complicated set of motions that you have to put together. But I said, when you were a baby and you had to learn to walk, guess what? Walking was a confusing set of motions that you had to learn. Now do you have to think about it?
Right.
No, it just happened. You have to do things over and over again. The muscle memory, like you said, it's the same for this.
And these are the things that I found that really helps me hook and land a big blackfish. I mean, we're going to talk about hooking them and how to get them to eat, but from the time you set the hook and the time you get that fish into the net is where if you do one little thing wrong, that fish is going to laugh at you.
Oh, yeah.
And you're going to cry forever.
And what some guys don't understand, right, is, you'll have guys, I'm sure you've had guys come talk to you that, oh, yeah, I landed a big fish. Like you said, I was using a fluke this and fluke that. And I've seen guys land a thresher shark on a fluke. They're fluke fishing land. You're talking about chance and luck. And when you're doing what you're doing and trying to match the gear and take away every little, you're just trying to shave away that luck little by little. There's always going to be a little bit involved,
Yeah.
but you're trying to put the odds in your favor, right? So it's a totally different ballgame.
Here's a picture of a fish I caught in the springtime, 13 and a half pounds. And you'll see later on a picture, you'll see a 17 and a half pounder that looks almost exactly like that fish.
Call those the Jay Leno chin tog. What weight do they have to get to before they get the Jay Leno
When they
chin?
get that, some males just have this obscure bulbous chin, and in the words of Dennis Mullenforth, that's a Jay Leno tog. Dennis is an awesome fisherman. I'm so lucky to share the deck with him. We're going to talk about preparation, and to me, the preparation is the easy part. What I can do the night before, tying new top shots on and getting ready for a fishing trip, that's easy.
Totally in your control.
Oh yeah, do it in your kitchen when you're not on the deck in the dark at 4 o'clock in the morning with frozen hands.
Yeah, Joe.
No.
Or as Joe does, makes me do it for him.
True.
When you're considering gear and rigging, talk to true toggers. Don't talk to Facebook heroes, because you're just going to get 50 different opinions on rods, reels, and lines and leaders and hooks from people that they might not even fish in your waters. I mean, they might fish up in Rhode Island and they might be well-meaning and they might have a couple 8-pounders under their belt. If that's what you're after, then that's your guy. You'll be on deck with guys that are really good. Learn from them. Okay, so let's talk about big blackfish boats and captains. And these are boats that you really want to get on that have exceptionally skilled captains that are really good boats. They produce not only a lot of blackfish, but a lot of big blackfish. The first one goes without mention. It's the one I caught my first double-digit blackfish on, and we've all fished on this boat with Jerry Pastorino. It's the Fishmonger II. And there's also a Fishmonger III now going on as well. Jerry just got it. So for so many years, we've been saying, don't bother calling Fishmonger because you won't get on. Well, guess what? He got a bigger boat. It's like, I think it's like a 46-footer now, and he's going to be running, and he has what's the captain's running the smaller, the green girl?
Alex. I'm not sure how to pronounce the last name.
Yeah, good dude. I mean, really good guy. So now, if you ever wanted to fish on Fishmonger, call them now. Take the date, go on that boat, because both of them are going to be awesome. The new 46-footer has a 16-foot beam. And I can't say enough about Jerry and his crew. It's just an awesome platform to fish on. So easy to learn from them. You just have to keep your mouth shut, keep your eyes open, and learn.
And he's pleasant to fish with. Like, I know some captains can be a little salty out there, and obviously I've seen Jerry get upset or whatever, but
he just screams up in the sky. He screams at the ceiling.
He's a pleasant captain to fish with. I don't know how else to put it. You know what I'm talking about.
Extremely hardworking.
Yeah.
And so Jerry is the best bottom fisherman I ever saw. Hands down, bar none. Most talented guy with a stick in his hand. And also, as far as handling the boat, and an innate ability of knowing where the fish are going to be biting at certain stages of the tide.
They're right outside his window.
Incredible. They follow him around. I saw him catch a 20-pounder in the mud puddle in the parking lot. Swear to God. Incredible dude.
Yeah.
Seriously incredible dude. Captain Chris on the CL. Again, these are boats that you can call and you can get on and you can go fishing with them. Stacked Up is a newer boat up there, but the captain's been around a long time. Really a good dude, and you can get on these boats. All the way down out of Longport, south of Atlantic City, there's a boat called Mover. Captain Robbie Moss, his phone number's up there if you want to get on. Robbie fishes well into the winter, too, for Blackfish. He's a boat from out local that's around here, a 35-foot Donnell. Very nice boat to fish from. Cape May, where I've been spending a lot of my time lately, simply because I have a house down in this area, so it's a lot easier for me to fish from here. Captain Tom Daffin on the Fishing Fever. I can't say enough about Tom. Always such a pleasure to fish with. Great boat. Another super skilled dude, man. He just knows what's happening and when and where the fish are going to be biting. There's a boat called Legal Limit with Captain TJ. There's his phone number up there. Very good boat to fish from. That's a 35-foot Duffy. Very comfortable, nice down east boat. Again, really very, very skilled guy. He has a great anchoring system. These boats all double anchor. They have haulers in the back. It's you're definitely not on, you're not on some rookie boat. Adam runs a 27-foot Hydra Sport center console. It's got gull wings and stuff. Adam's a really, really skilled guy. I've caught some really great fish on his boat. Obviously, with the center console, it is a little bit different, but Adam tends to pull his boat a little earlier than the other boats. So, if, again, great captain to fish with. And because his boat's a little smaller, he does get on some of the smaller pieces that the other boats don't get on. And man, do them smaller pieces hold some big fish.
Right.
For those who don't want to commit, you get on a charter boat. I had you guys on my trips. You booked the trip 2 months in advance. I don't want to hear about what's the weather going to be 3 days, right? It's like we're all in this together, man. We're a big moving piece. If you're not the kind of guy to commit, if you want to, jump on a headboat. It's not the worst thing in the world to do. Out of Belmar, you have the big Mohawk. Out of Atlantic City, you have the Osprey. It's a reservations required boat. They only take like 20. But what a great boat to fish on. They always have white crabs. They have a great captain, great crew. Out of Sea Isle City, there's a boat called the Starfish. And there's the Cape May Lady out of Cape May that runs a lot of trips certain times in and out. But again, these are great boats that'll get you in the waters that hold really good fish. The Morning Star out of Ocean City, Maryland, I would absolutely be remiss not to mention Captain Monty on the Morning Star. Talk about an extremely knowledgeable guy about all things in fisheries. Monty is a pleasure to fish with and a great resource.
And a lot of guys will jump on a headboat kind of just randomly, like they don't have a list of recommendations from someone who blackfishes a lot, and they'll just kind of jump on. And a lot of the boats that do blackfish trips sometimes just do it because that's what's available at that time.
Grab.
And, and it's not just, I'm not going to name boats because it's different for everyone, but it puts a sour taste in a lot of guys' mouths, me included. I've jumped on a headboat just because, hey, let's go blackfishing. Who's going? Oh, this guy, let's just jump on. And you get out there and they just kind of go through the motions. And if it's not a day where the fish are just chewing their heads off, you end up having, a bad fishing. Just put it like that.
Always remember, especially true when you're talking about the North Atlantic in the wintertime, the winds are always going to be at least 10 miles an hour more that are out there than they are in here. So when they say, it's going to be 55 degrees and the winds are going to be 10 to 15 miles an hour, when you get out there, man, it's going to be 40 degrees and they're going to be 20 to 25 miles an hour and they're going to be 4 to 6 footers. And the boat that says, you should have been here, I told you so, that is a money grab. He needs to pay his bills, and I get it, but take it for what it's worth. If you want to fish that kind of boat, if you don't want to make a commitment, that's okay. I kind of think that's a bit nasty with people because it kind of leads them to believe, in that boat, go out, you catch a few nice fish on that boat during the course of the year. It catches a few fish, but they're also the kind of head boats that usually they have their select group of regulars. and you'll get there in the morning and the mate will have these rods and these rod holders, and like the whole stern of the boat is taken for all these regulars, and the captain puts the stern right on the structure all day long while you're up in the middle or the bow and it's sitting on sand and you're not catching shit and you're sitting here watching this guy catch all these fish. It's a little, it's a little bit of a take.
Yeah, I mean, me personally, I've gotten to the point, and I got there pretty quickly when I started doing this, that I wanted to pay the extra money to go on these 6-packs or like the Fishmonger type.
Yeah.
But I've been on the Osprey, and I got to say, it was a great operation.
Like I said, these boats that I talk about are not like that. These captains, they work hard for the whole boat.
Yeah. And there's a couple others that I've been on there. I won't go through the list, but there's a couple of good guys out there. You just gotta go talk to people, and you'll find out pretty quick, who's worth going with and who's kind of just, if you want to spend the day on the water and maybe catch something.
If most of the guys are canceling, if most of the boats are canceling and you're the kind of guy that's like, oh, I got to go fishing. I need to go. I got to get away from my wife. Well, like, bro, just do something else. I've never been that kind of guy. I would much rather stay home. If it's rolling out there and it's freezing cold, I would rather be home, because you're not going to be able to fish the spots the captain really wants to fish.
Yeah.
You're not going to be comfortable. You're going to be pitching and rolling all over the place. For me, I would much rather.
And the really good captains, if they don't believe that they can get you on that good fishing that they're known for
safely,
I feel like they're gonna cancel a trip, or at least explain to you what's going on and recommend, like, I could take you out. It might be safe. It's going to be a little bit bumpy, but I don't think the fishing is going. I've had those conversations. It's one of the things that makes the really good captains stand out from the guys who are just kind of going through the motions.
And I've learned that when the captain says that, you say, let's cancel.
I'll always go with the captain, what he said. He wants to make money too. He wants to do his job. So if he's saying, I don't know, I don't think it's going to pay off, it's up to you guys, I could take you out, you got to kind of take that for.
Yeah, there's the hint there.
We had a fluke trip booked this year with Jerry Postorino, and we were supposed to show up an hour earlier and pay $30 extra because he had found a good bite far. But we got the call the night before that he wouldn't be able to make it there, and he canceled it. Instead of fishing inside and just making money, he canceled it. I mean, that's honesty.
Yeah. It's the right thing to do. Now, and one thing with the captains that I fish with, the guys that I'm fishing with a lot lately, they're more like they'll actually cancel, the day before. Like when it gets to 11 or 12 the day before a trip, you kind of know if it's going to fall apart. These guys know weather way better than anybody else. I would much rather trust a captain with the weather than I would the people at NOAA. Absolutely, hands down, bar none. They know their waters. They know the direction of the wind and the current. They know where they can get out of the wind from. And like you said, they want to make money. They don't want to cancel. But it's a matter of, do you really want to go out there and be pitching and rolling all day long? And, because I did that one time in the springtime and I won the pool with like a 2-pound wing and, threw up all day long. I was like 20 years old and I went home. That was the day I bought my first set of Grundens and white boots. I was out there wearing some yellow slickers and, work boots.
That's what suffer for the fish means.
That's brutal. I wish I should have stayed home that day, but it was cool. But let's get back to the seminar. Talking about fish, why are fish in southern New Jersey or the southern part of the northeast coast, why are they so much larger than they are in other parts of the coast? Warmer water temperatures mean that the fish stay active 12 months a year off of the Virginia, Maryland coast, meaning they're active. They live, they're not hibernating, they're eating 12 months a year. Off in New Jersey, that's about 10 months a year where they're eating and growing. About 7 months a year off of Massachusetts. So what that equates to is a 10-year-old blackfish in Virginia has grown at the rate of a 17-year-old blackfish off of Massachusetts. So these fish up in Rhode Island, they are very big, but they do not grow as fast as they do down here. Most times, most fish off of Jersey are growing at a rate of about one pound per year. Okay, we've had a lot of ololiths checked out of South Jersey area. Sully caught that state record blackfish on the Fishing Fever. It was 25.8 pounds. The fish was 25 years old. So these are, then we've had multiples of 15, 18, 20s, and they always come out very, very close.
How do they check the age on those fish?
They remove the ololiths, which are the ear bones in the fish, and kind of like a tree, they count the growth rings.
Okay.
That's how they age out a fish. So talking about gear, talking about blackfish rods, again, these are things that are very controllable. This is the easy part. Yeah. You go out, man, you fork over some money and you're here. This is easy. You don't have to suffer for this. Maybe your wallet does.
The wallet suffers.
But it's, again, it's a matter of, what do you want to do? And keep in mind, too, I'm not talking to guys that are very skilled black fishermen. Please forgive me, these guys that are such skilled black fishermen, don't listen to what I say about rods and reels. They know what they're doing. They don't need to hear this from me. But the guys that are newer black fishermen, when you want to know what is going to mechanically aid you getting a giant blackfish off the bottom, I'm going right there right now. Okay?
Yeah, and guys will get sensitive about it. Like you said, like if you are experienced in doing something and you do something differently, keep doing it. If it works, it works. Mm-hmm. This is for someone who doesn't know where to start and wants that big stepping stone to get it. So
my blackfish rods, ideally 7.5 to 8 foot long, definitely gives me a mechanical advantage, and I need all the help I can get. I am a little bit partial to the Century Pro Togger because I did help design that rod from the blank all the way to the end. It really does exactly, that is a mission specific rod. It is an excellent blackfish bait rig rod for me. It's not the only one that'll do the job. Tsunami makes several rods. One of them is called the Tsunami Classic and another one's called the Slow Pitch XX Heavy. They're excellent rack rods and they're both under $100 each. They're excellent rods.
Can't beat that. Right.
They'll do what you need. What makes a great rod? Well, for me, perfect balance. When I'm fishing a slack line, I want to hold that rod in front of the reel. And again, it's a 7'10" rod. I want that rod to just float there. I want it to float a little bit tip up where I don't want to constantly be holding this heavy tip rod trying to balance it. I want to, I'm standing at the rail all day long holding this rod. I want it to be less fatiguing for me. Okay. Perfect balance really helps. Short butt, and the shorter butt, like on the Pro Togger, it's like 12.5 inches long. That's my personal preference, and we're going to get into that in a little bit and why I like such a short butt. But it's funny, a story goes back to when I was looking at trying to get a new blackfish rod. I went into a place called Harry's Army and Navy up in Bordentown. And I went in there and I see this rod. It's called a Tika Rec Series rod. And I'm looking at it and the rear butt is like this long. It's 17 inches long. And I go to the guy behind the counter. I go, he goes, you like that rod, D? I'm like, it's pretty nice. I said, but he goes, if you have any questions, let me know. I helped design that rod. I said, you did. Let me ask you. I said, how come the butt is so long? It's like I put the rod in front of me, my hand's like out here.
Yeah.
I'm like, how come the butt's so long? He goes, well, I'm a smoker. So when I'm at the rail, I hold the rod with one hand and I smoke with the other. I looked at him, I said, I thought you were a togger. I put the rod down and walked out. I'm like, bro, I'm trying to be a serious togger. You're worried about smoking cigarettes. I mean, come on. But again, okay. The short butt does a lot for me, and we're going to get into that. Comfortable but sensitive grips. A lot of guys like cork. I did like cork for a long time, but I did realize after handling the crabs all the time, my hands get cold and slippery. The cork gets slippery. It tends to get a little slimy sometimes. And one time I almost dropped my rod, and I was like, okay, let me look at some of these newer higher modulus EVA foams.
And now on that foregrip, the one that you have, I can't really see it over there. Is that perfectly round around, or does it have like that one flat side so it's not a perfect circle?
Perfectly round.
And you prefer that? Because I found over time, I kind of like the ones, do you know what I'm talking about, where it's like flat on one side? Because it tends, like what you said, when your hands, if you grab it with a wet, slimy hand, it turns more in my hand. And with that flat part, you could kind of put your thumb on it and kind of hold it down. But
I do like that. It just so happens the Pro Togger, this thing was really made because I have pretty big hands. So the foregrip on it is a little bit wide. It's 5 inches long. It's wide enough that I can really get a good grip on it. You know, now the spinning rods and stuff that I design don't have that wide of a handle. But for us, when we're out there togging and we have gloves on and stuff, this thing really does fit what I'm doing just right. A trigger grip reel seat, and it's a big trigger grip. It's like you can put 2 fingers on it. You have not lived until you've been on the side of the boat where you are, and you're flipping a 10-ounce weight and a big crab up towards the front, and that knot hits your tip top. And your $1,100 outfit goes, and you're like, oh my God, I almost dropped, because, oh my God, it's like, and then I'm like, oh, okay, wait a minute, if I use a trigger grip reel seat, I can, and something to talk about the details, like the trigger grip that I put on the Pro Togger actually slopes backward. So that at night, when I'm home redoing my top shots for my next trip, I tie my top shot on, I put like 25 feet on the reel, I come up, I tie my double line, I put my double line around the trigger grip, and I come tight. So it's everything stores real nicely, Yeah. Again, I'm a little bit of a detail freak.
Hey, I mean, if that puts your mind at ease, no matter what it is, whether it's, and everything still, it has a function. It's not like you're just doing things out of
willy-nilly.
Yeah,
it's become a pretty efficient fish catching machine for me, and it's done a lot for me.
That's been proven.
And just to make this clear, that Century Pro Togger, I don't make 1 red cent from selling that. I don't care if somebody buys it or they don't buy it. It doesn't matter to me. I designed it and I sell it because I really want to help guys catch bigger fish. I don't make a living out of selling those rods. I don't even make any commission from them at all. Ryan White sends me an extra rod here and there. That's all good, but I do it for the passion of it. I don't do it to try to make a living off of it. You need a sensitive, smooth power with a rod like this. You really want a nice tip that's capable of holding a 10-ounce weight and a big crab. But you also want a sensitive tip with smooth power that comes in quickly. And you really don't want any bottom to the power band. And what I mean by that is when I am set up on a big fish and I've been kind of railed, having it was a 17-pound female, man, that the captain looked at me and said, after we got it in, he said, I thought you had a 20. The fish it fought incredibly hard and it had me railed just thumping on the bottom, and this rod had more, and that's what I need. Again, this is a trophy Blackfish stick. I want to make sure I do not run out of power. And there's another decent Blackfish caught on Jerry's boat. Boy, we had a day that day. Reels. This is where, again, gaining the mechanical advantage. I mean, the overall thing, what we're doing here with this rod and reel is it's a very, very simple tool. I mean, it goes back to caveman times where there's this thing called a lever. Okay, there's a lever. It's a way of helping you move something. Well, there's a fulcrum. Okay, the fulcrum is where the lever moves, where it pivots at. Where I want this pivot point to be back here, which is one of the reasons why I have the length of the butt and the foregrip and why I have that length of rod. It's a very simple mechanical advantage. It's very well thought out. So that's where I'm going with this whole concept. What kind of reels do I like? I really prefer a star drag reel. Lever drag reels they're not the tool for this.
Can you just expand on why?
Yeah, lever drag reels, as during the course of the day, when you drop it to the bottom, you pull the lever back and it pulls back like 1.5 2 inches, drops to the bottom, you throw it forward 1.5 2 inches. The adjustment on a lever drag reel will occasionally walk a little more or a little off during the course of the day. Also, in the middle of a fight of a very large fish, you may want to back that star drag off a click or two. Okay, you do not want to be doing that with a lever drag, because when a lever drag's got all kind of pressure on it, you try to drop it back just a click, all of a sudden it goes, and then you go forward, now you got a bird's nest, and boop, and it's all over.
And it gets stuck sometimes when there's pressure on it, kind of like not that it's the same, but like a bait caster, that button is actually, it's made that you can't, I don't know. It's a similar function, I think. I feel like that lever drag, I don't know, it kind of gets stuck. I get what you're saying. It's not as easy to back off just a touch. Right. You end up doing too much or not enough. Yeah.
Right. The star drag reel, drag setting, I set it on murder. I just crank that thing down tight and away I go. Again, it's all about getting that thing out of the wreck, man. The reels I personally used, Iowa Saltiga SASD 15s. It just so happened the original 15s with a 5.1 gear to ratio is discontinued because according to Iowa, nobody bought them but us crazy toggers. So they do have a new Saltiga coming out now. It has a slightly higher gear ratio. It's like a 6.1 to 1 that I'm gonna try one this year and I'm gonna see if I like it. It has a slightly different handle, but you know what? We're gonna give it a shot and see if it performs well. The 5.1 to 1 gear ratio is really, again, mission specific. The amount of torque that you have with that gear is good, but it also has good speed. When you drop a heavy weight to the bottom and you have a high gear ratio, something like a 7 to 1, and you go to turn that handle, if you just hold the rod out and you turn the handle with a heavy weight, the handle will just go whoop, where it won't have enough gear ratio to just turn it up because it's too tall of a gear. You'd have to pump the rod, lift, pump, reel to sinker up, lift, pump, reel to sinker up. So that's an indication that you're using the wrong tool for the job. Just because somebody's telling you high speed gear is better, it depends. Are you fishing flutter jigs for yellowfin? They're great for that. Yellowfin are free swimmers. They're not dogging to try to get into the bottom. A high-speed gear is great for that. You need that gear ratio to get the proper action on the jigs. But again, don't use your ball peen hammer to frame a house. Don't use the wrong tool. The Penn Torque is a reel that currently is offered in that 5 to 1 gear ratio. It's like the third size up from the bottom. It's like the smallest that comes up in a bunch of sizes. It's like the third one up has the 5.1 gear ratio. Shimano Oshia jigger, very similar situation to the Saltiga. That's actually discontinued now too. But there's a reel called the Maxwell Hybrid 25. If you bass fishermen, you really like that thumb bar release thing. When this reel first came out, I actually had the first version of it when it was prototype, and I beat the hell out of that thing. I ripped the handle off of it. I ripped the rod. I ripped the reel off the reel foot. The grease in the gears froze. It wouldn't release. I sent the thing back to Tsunami with a real nice letter of all the things that failed. They sent me it back 2 weeks later, completely addressed all the issues, where they put new gears in it that were machined closer to tolerance.
Tsunami owns Maxwell?
Yeah. Sorry.
Maxwell comes up in conversation a lot.
The first version of this, like I said, I literally destroyed this thing. While fighting a blackfish, I ripped the reel off the reel foot. I ripped the handle off of it. The gears where the tolerances weren't quite right, so the bolt that holds the handle in wouldn't hold it in. They fixed all these things in 2 weeks, and the reel they sent it back to me, I'm still using. The most impressive thing was the reel foot. They had the reel foot like stuck on the bottom of the aluminum frame with a couple screws in it. They took this reel foot and they made a plate all machined out of a piece of aluminum, and the plate had 4 machine screws in it. And they took it and they offset it to the side closest to the handle to eliminate spring action. Then they machined the reel housing and put the reel foot into the machined housing. I mean, I love to work for companies like that it's not my job to re-engineer something. I'm not the engineer. I just am there to fish the hell out of it and find out if it's what needs to be fixed. The fact that they sent that back to me with those improvements so quickly, it just made me realize that I really want to work with that company because they really care. So many people, they send you stuff and they just want pictures of you with big fish. They don't want to hear that their stuff is junk or it doesn't do this or it doesn't do that. To have a company that cared and they went so far out of their way to fix it, it truly impressed me.
That's cool. Yeah,
it is cool.
Yeah. Braided line and small reels. Braided line absolutely changed the world of fishing, probably more than anything I've seen. They let us use much smaller reels for black fishing, so we do things like we rip the reels off of the reel foot because we're catching crazy big fish on these little tiny reels. On my Blackfish reels, I'm using 50-pound Daiwa J Braid 8. I sometimes step up to 65. Tom Daffin likes to use 80. So in that range in there, personally, I do my system of rigging 50-pound works really, really good.
Do you find when you have to go up in the braid diameter, do you notice like, oh, I got to use a little bit more weight, I got a little bit more drag on there?
It's funny you mention that. I was using 65 and I was out at Reef Site 11 and I was using a 10-ounce sinker, and with 65-pound braid going from 50 to 65, I noticed my sinker was kind of walking across the bottom. I seem to feel more drag on my line. Again, Reef Site 11, you're in the mouth of Delaware Bay, you get crazy currents, and I drop back to 50 and I don't seem to have that problem. And 50 does seem to be plenty strong for me.
And I think 80. Yeah, 80 is pretty thick, but the difference between 50-pound braid and 80-pound braid is it may not seem like a lot, but when you're fishing deeper, 70 to 100 feet or whatever, and you take that small diameter difference and multiply it by how much line you have out and you add a good current in there, you're talking, a pretty big difference.
Oh yeah, believe me, this is full contact fishing, brother. This is down and dirty. Lock it in, get it done.
And I don't know. Everyone has their own opinion, but I tend in fishing to want to use the lightest gear that I can get away with without risking very highly losing a fish, obviously. So would you say for black fishing for mainline, that'd be 50-pound braid? 50,
it works great with my top shot and with my rod. 50 seems to work awesome. Okay. Keep in mind, 50-pound braid, this is not IGFA line. I mean, 50-pound braid, usually braid breaks at near double, like 75 to 100% of the breaking strength. Yeah. So 50-pound braid is probably breaking between 75 and 100 pounds. So it's a lot.
As long as you don't have any damage on it.
There you go.
Always check that line.
Yeah, hence the term top shot. We're going to get to that in a minute. I like to use the multicolored Daiwa J Braid 8. It keeps me engaged when I'm dropping towards the bottom. And again, it's the mental engagement. Like I'm dropping my line to the bottom and it goes purple, green, yellow, blue, red, purple. And I know when I get to the second purple, I know that's where I'm at the bottom. So I drop it to the bottom and then all of a sudden I'll drop my thumb on there. And it's just a matter of my level of mental engagement.
And you don't really want that sinker to just slam into the bottom hard, right? Okay. Oh, it doesn't matter. All right. I thought you were like counting it so you could slow it down at the end.
No. I wanted to get to the bottom. And as soon as it gets to the bottom, as I start getting near to the bottom, I'm kind of going to lean forward a little bit and put my thumb on it because there is a little bit of a bow in the line from it dropping to the bottom. So when it drops in, I'm going to engage, I'm going to come back, and I'm quickly going to feel my sinker on the bottom. A lot of times with big blackfish, if you drop a bait right in front of them, they will immediately just demolish it. And I think it's more of an instinctive, how dare you come into my area type of thing. And I don't care what makes them eat it. I just want to eat my crab. It's pretty simple. I just please eat my crab.
Yeah. I don't ask them why they did it when they come up.
That's it. The 50-pound Daiwa J Braid 8 ties to a mono top shot. The mono top shot I use this year, I use Andy 60. Again, 50-pound braid, 60-pound mono top shot. I tie an FG knot on here. And the FG knot I started using recently again because I'm able to tie such an awesome FG knot because I can use these knot pullers that, like you were talking about, cutting your hands.
Oh yeah, there's just like permanent like slits in all my finger joints.
Yeah, man, I'll tell you, I tie the FG knot. I wrap the mono around this a few times. I wrap the braid around this a few times. I've pulled so hard that when you're standing up and you're pulling so hard, I've actually broken my braid a few times just seeing if I could break it. So these add the tremendous amount of torque to let you seat that FG knot properly, that you're not even cutting your hands.
Oh yeah, and it's such a simple tool. It's just a cylinder, rubber coated.
Right.
Got 2 magnets to hold them together so you don't lose them.
In it if you want to stick your hook in there to pull the
the
sound hook. Now this particular brand is made by 30 Fathoms. They're really good. I think they're a little bit, I don't know how much they are, like $30 or something. There are some other brands I've seen, like from like Barracuda and stuff, and they, these are pretty serious.
Yeah,
and I get really attached to my things. If I have a tool that works well for me, I'll have something for years. I have a set of these in my tackle bag, and I have a set of them in my kitchen cabinet where I keep my coffee cups. And every night after fishing, when I come in and I tie new top shots on, that's where I do it. So
real quick before you move on, the 60-pound top shot, talking about wanting to use the lightest gear possible without risking too highly losing the fish. Would you say it's 60 or 50? Because I've used 50 for a while, but I can't tell you I've never lost a fish on it.
60 in Cape May.
I'll say 60 or 80. Yeah,
50 where we are.
And the reason, and it sounds kind of silly, but something that I actually got a great word of advice, because the 60, if you get the 60 or 80 on the 1/4 pound spool, the spool's very small, so it comes off and it's all coiled up. But look how loose these coils are. Because Papa Curtis said, "Hey, why don't you just get it on a 1/2 pound spool?" And I was like, "Bing, great idea, Papa Curtis." And I started buying the Andy Pink on 1/2 pound spools, and hence I don't have a big coily mess when I'm dealing with this thing. Again, little tiny things make it happen better. But the idea of the top shot gives you some abrasive resistance. It also gives you some shock absorbing properties to this rod. You got a big stiff rod, you got braided line. You need something a little bit, so it's not such a shock. Think of it almost like a big rubber band. Okay, it has shock absorbing properties to help avoid tackle stresses, to help avoid the stress on the knots, and even on the hook in the fish's mouth. Just a little bit of a break.
You really don't want to use fluorocarbon for your top shot.
If you want to waste all your money, go ahead.
Well, that, and there's not really as much stretch, if any, to it. So you're losing that aspect of it too. And it's more expensive.
And no benefit. And to be honest with you, when we talk about leaders and stuff, we're going to get into that in just a minute about fluorocarbon versus mono, and you'll see it really doesn't matter a whole lot. But right now, on the end of my top shot, I'm just going to tie a quick double line here, and I'm going to use the Belmar rig to tie in my hooked rig. And the reason why you use a Belmar rig for this is you have double line here, and you're tying it in to your single line of your rig. The idea of using the double line, tying around the single line, this is what gives this attachment the strength as to not constantly shear off big fish. I recently was fishing with a captain from up north, and he was like, "Yeah, I don't like doing it that way because it breaks off." And I'm like, "Well, are you doing the double line?" He goes, "No, I'm doing a single line." So he was using a single line top shot and tying into the single line leader, and this was cutting through this. So I had to tell him this, go back to the double, do a foot or two of double line, tie your double line into your leader hook. And another thing is, once you catch a double-digit fish, take that rod, put it away, and grab your other rod. Once you catch a double-digit fish on that rig, put a whole new rig on, because the stresses that fish will put on the knots and the line and the hooks. Yeah. Put it away, grab your other rod. When the captain moves to a different spot, re-rig that other rod. So,
I mean, that's good advice that people probably won't follow out of laziness.
I'm a little spoiled too. I mean, I know I'm a very lucky man. I have 2 pro toggers, 2 Daiwa reels, but this is all comes down to me trying to spend that extra couple minutes with my bait in the water during the course of the day. Because that couple minutes is when I'm going to get that fish.
Hey, you're already spending X amount of money to be out there for one purpose, to try to catch a fish that's, a big fish. So why not spend a little bit more and increase your chance?
Yellow Dog Paddle, Mike Herman. He is booking trips now for March on Round Valley Reservoir, trolling for trophy trout, lake trout, brown trout, rainbow trout. Mike is also offering now fishing lessons for doing that type of fishing, kind of a more in-depth look at what's actually being done and used, so you could do it on your own as opposed to a fishing trip. So a lot of options now from Yellow Dog Paddle. I would give Mike Herman a call, though, because his availability is booking up. So call Yellow Dog Paddle.
So here's a picture of a rigged rod with the Belmar rig, and you can see right here, you can see this is actually a slider hook. This is an old picture. It's a slider rig, and it's tied into the hook tied into the double line about 4 inches above the sinker.
Now, what I did notice is that sinker isn't red.
This is an old picture, like I said. The reason I started getting into red sinkers was, again, obviously you learn things from your friends. Well, this is something I picked up from Joe Zagorski a long time ago. And since then, I've kind of evolved into it. I take my 10-ounce bank sinkers, and because I don't live near the shore, I live like 50 miles from the beach. If I lived near the shore, I would take a bucket of salt water and throw all my sinkers in them and get them all old and crusty and corroded, but I don't. So I take my new sinkers and I spray them with red Plastidip spray, and they become red flat. They're not red gloss or red flat. And the reason being, there's a couple advantages to this, in my opinion. Number one is the new sinkers are very shiny. Okay. Red is the color that disappears first in the water column. So when the red gets to the bottom, the fish don't see red and they don't see black. They see like a dull gray color. So they really don't see it. But also, it's not shiny. It kills the shine. Whereas if we're out fishing, say, mid to late November, early December, and there's a lot of dogfish around, when you get a bite and you have a shiny sinker on, you swing and you miss the fish, the sinker goes back to the bottom, the dogfish sees the sinker, comes over and eats your bait, and now you get dogfish. You get dogfish every time you miss a blackfish, you get a dogfish. So the red sinker gets rid of the shine. It eliminates some of the attractiveness.
And I've noticed that even, excuse me, even with the jigs, the brighter colors, sometimes they'll work to attract the blackfish. But if there's dogfish around, you turn it into a huge problem real quick.
And that'll attract them to the whole boat. I mean, it'll ruin the bite for the whole boat.
Yeah. And the other thing is that what is Plastidip? Mm-hmm. It's soft. It's not. It's thicker than like a thin. It's not a thin coat of paint, really. It's like it almost puts like a soft coating on it,
like a flexible rubber coating.
Yeah. So it's almost like the difference between like your sinker hitting a hard surface or your sinker hitting like a softer surface. I don't know if you think that makes a difference or not.
I never really thought that far into it. For me, I mean, I went out to try to find a spray can of flat spray paint, and I'm pretty convinced it doesn't exist. You can buy gloss red everywhere, but flat red spray does not happen. So that was a way I was able to accomplish.
I know Psycho Jigs actually ripped your idea off, and now he's selling the weights pre-dipped in Plastidip. So you could buy them.
I mean, I'm surprised nobody's done it to this.
Make that money, baby. Make that money. I'll tell you what. I bet I have 40 pounds of flat bank 10-ounce sinkers that are painted red in my garage, ready to go. Ready to go.
I make Joe paint mine. He found the stuff. I haven't seen it anywhere.
So can you paint mine?
It's hard to find.
Can you paint mine? I have a big box. I need them done can you have them done by April?
No.
Let's talk about hooks and leaders for just a minute. We use Owner Cutting Point Octopus 5/0 hooks. These are the hooks that we use. It's number 5311-151. I like the 5/0 best. Some guys like the 4/0, and that's okay. But I find that when I put a couple of these hooks in a crab, it's big enough that it has a really good bite. There's enough point sticking out that it'll find that fish's mouth. I also use a 6/0 sometimes. There are times when I'll occasionally use a single hook rig, and if I'm doing that, I'll use a 6/0 hook.
Well, can I ask, what's the reason for, I noticed that in Cape May guys will go to the single hook rig. Why would you take a hook away?
Bro, that's a great question. again, the current in the area. There's times when we're fishing and all of a sudden there's a moon tide. We're at reef site 11. My 10-ounce sinker is walking off the bottom and it's feeling really weird. And I'm using a nice whole crab. And maybe I already cut the legs off to try to keep it. But because that crab is hooked like this, maybe it's kind of like a parachute and it's kind of lifting off the bottom. Or maybe I feel like the current is twisting the bait a little bit, giving it something unnatural that I'm not getting bit like I think it should be. And at that time, and again, here I'm going to let it all hang out, man. I'm going to let it all hang out. I take a small crab. I'll cut the legs off of one side. I'll take that 6/0 hook and I'll hook it from the, just in that one side of the crab, and I'll let it go to the bottom and I'll fish that small whole crab in a time when it's extreme current. And I've had some very good luck making a really good presentation that way. That was a good question.
Let me ask you, so if you're using this double rig here, the, what is it, V rig, A rig, and you want to switch to a single hook, can you just cut one of these off and use it, or is that not going to work right?
You could. I don't. Fishing out, and we're going to get into that in just a minute. So let me just go there before we get into this. But that's a really good question. I really don't do that. I'm sure that you could. I have single hook rigs that I usually tie on about a 16-inch, 16-inch leader. I just find that the single hook, the small crab, a little bit longer leader.
Okay. So it's a totally different rig, different, longer length, bigger hook. Okay.
Just a single hook. It's just a single snelled hook tied into the Belmar rig, just like that. But when I'm tying these rigs, I'm using 60 to 80 pound Tsunami Pro fluorocarbon, or you could also use mono leader material. I mean, regular Andy, I don't use Andy Pink. I use Andy mono leader material in the skein. It's very good. But I've been using this stuff for so long, this Tsunami fluorocarbon. Excellent product. And it's different than Yozuri fluoro and other stuff. It tends to be it's not very stiff, but it has a really hard finish. It kind of reminds me of the old leader materials we used to buy, that when you would go into a tackle shop, I don't know what it was called, but they would have these PVC pipes sitting there and they would pull out these like 3-foot long pieces of pre-straightened leader material. And it had this real stiff finish. That's what this feels like. But at the same time, when you snell your hook and you pull tight on it, where that leader material would pull tight and it would sometimes get a little pigtail, this stuff pulls tight, nice and smooth, straight through. So it just seems to be a superior product.
And that's the part of the line that's gonna hit something sharp. That's the part of the line that needs to take the damage. So I definitely, you don't want to skimp on that. You don't want to skimp on anything, but definitely not on that. 60 to 80 I'm using there. And again, this is just my choice. I've also used mono interchangeably and done very well with it too. Sometimes I'm out with Tom Daffin and I'll ask Tom to tie me up a rig for whatever reason. And Tom will whip me up a beautiful little snafu rig and out of like 80 or 100 pound mono. And it's just a thing of beauty. It just does what I ask it to do. So I catch fish on that mono just like I do on this fluoro. So don't let stuff get in your head too much. So you really don't think there's any, I mean, everyone has their preferences. You have your preferences, but you're saying it really does, there's no real reason fluorocarbon versus mono for that.
I really don't think so. And I don't think we're fishing for trout. I don't think we're fly fishing in a stream with a 2-pound tippet. It's not that way. We can make more out of it than what it does. And I think a lot of guys, they really like to, make Blackfish this big mystery thing. And I'm just trying to just take it right to the 1 yard line. I'm trying to take brand new toggers, take them right down to the 1 yard line. Here you are. Get it in.
Yeah. Score your touch.
That's it, man. Just make it happen. Check your leader every time you bait up. Clip your hooks off and retie the rod regularly. When you pull up and you do find when you look at it and, about every 10 minutes, if I'm not getting bit, or if I go down there and I get bite, and it stops, I'll wait for like 3 or 4 minutes. If it stopped, and I'll pull up and I'll check it and it's probably empty. But I can't tell you how many times a day I do this. And if I feel a little scratch, I'm going to pick up the other rod. I'm going to fish that rod. When the captain starts pulling the anchors, I'm cutting the rigs off of this rod and I'm re-rigging.
And I think, and obviously the structure that we're fishing for the Blackfish, those hooks are so sharp that tip of that point of that hook is so fine. That hits a rock the wrong way, or even the inside of a tog's mouth on the hard teeth or something, and that point gets, I mean, maybe it's just me, but I go crazy. If I don't feel that tip of that hook like stick on my skin with just the easiest pressure,
it should stick into your thumbnail. See how it's sticking? That's not dragging. That is sticking into my thumb.
I do it on my skin because I like to feel pain.
Do it like this. But you really want to see if it digs into your. This has a cutting point. The owner octopus hook actually has a grounding cutting point with a very short tip. Yeah. If you use hooks like gammies or something with a needle point, it's very easy for that tip to break off or roll over. And recently, I mean, on one of my last couple trips, I dropped in, had a fish on for about 10, 15 seconds, boom, popped off. Dropped it in again, 5 seconds, popped off. Daffin looks at me, goes, check your hooks. Sure enough, I pull up, man. One of my hooks was not sticky sharp. I don't know why. I don't know how. I picked up the other one, so.
And I use the Gamakatsu hooks a lot just because that's what the local tackle shop has. I'm definitely going to be trying these because just what you said about that cutting point versus like that needle point.
They are the right tool for the job. And the owner octopus hooks are available with a cutting point or a needle point. So make sure you got to get the cutting point.
All right, that's a big thing then because it's you got to look at the print on the thing because I bet you the package probably looks exactly the same.
Very similar.
Yeah.
And
so
you can get them. I get them in like 20. They come in like 27 packs.
Yeah.
Like that little bag has like 27 hooks in it.
Yeah.
I mean, they are not cheap, but they are absolutely the best tool I found for the job.
Now, the good thing about my local tackle shop is when I ask him for something that he doesn't have, he gets it. So
occasionally, I think I'm about due for them now. I'm down to like 3 bags of them. I'll go to a local tackle shop and I'll have them order me a box of them, or the box comes with 10 packs of these. And I, drop a couple $100 and I got hooks for a few years. But it's because when you need them and you go around and you're trying to find them, you're always going to have a hard time finding them. Check your leader every time it comes up. Clip the hooks off and re-rig if they're beat. After you catch a big fish, again, change your rig. Here's some different rigs we use when we're fishing. This is a slider rig. And if you can see, this is my first double-digit blackfish, and you can see there's a 12 3/4 pound blackfish with the snelled hook in his mouth. And right here, you can see a half of a white crab on the slider hook, okay? The reason I stopped using slider rigs is because of this. When a large fish is hooked on the sliding hook, it jams against the snelled hook, and it will cut that line. This happened to me not once, it happened to me twice because I'm a glutton for punishment.
Fooled you twice.
Well, I thought, what are the odds of that? Did that really happen? And again, these kind of things happen with big fish. 6-7 pound fish don't do this. But extended fights with high pressure with very large fish will find a weak point. Now, there are, a lot of guys from up north, they love the slider rigs, and I've caught a ton of fish and some big fish on slider rigs. The way some guys are doing it now to prevent this is they snell the hook, they drop a bead on, and they put the sliding rig on, and that prevents this from happening. So.
And I don't know what beads they're using. So I do something similar. Like my jig rigs usually have an extra little stinger hook on there, and I'll put a bead for that same purpose. Mm-hmm. I've quite a few times had that bead shatter off, like gone, breaks off, shears off, however it gone from a fish, and nothing huge either. Just a nice regular, 4, 5, 6 pound blackfish on the stinger hook with that sliding piece against that bead. I've had that bead break. So that's one more step closer to having the not break and the fish be gone.
And like I said, brother, every time when I get a big fish, if I lose a big fish, I really take it personally, man. I am looking for that failure point, and I am going to remind myself of that. And I'm an eternal tinkerer, and I have a very mechanical mind, man. So I'm always looking at what caused this? Why did this happen? What can I do better with this? That's probably the reason why in a couple minutes when we get into the rod and how to properly set the hook, again, it's how to gain a mechanical advantage. What can I do to get that fish into the net?
You almost said you were an eternal tinkler.
Yeah.
That's Joe. We have to.
That from Joe because he pisses a lot.
Yeah, we've had to take like 8 breaks for Joe to take a piss already.
That's true. I almost got coffee out of my nose.
We don't want that.
Stop making fun of me, Chris.
All right, let's keep going.
Baits and presentations. I can't say this enough. Don't get lazy. When you get tired, don't get lazy. Put a new bait on. Every time you reel up, put a new bait on. There's a nice little white legger right there. You can see the couple hooks from my V rig right in there. And you can see on this one, it's not a really strong current. So I actually leave the back 2 legs on each side of that crab. When there's not a lot of current and I don't feel that the crab is getting pulled too tight and my rig's not twisting, I'll leave those couple legs on the back. That way, by cutting off the claw and 2 legs, I can put the hook in the claw hole, and 2 holes back, I can come out the other hole and I can still have those legs on each side. Again, a little bit nuts.
Well, it's only nuts if it doesn't lead to success, right? I mean,
I blame it all on you. Rigs that I use for small hole crabs, I'll either use a short snafu or a V rig. And what I mean by this is a short snafu, you can tie your snafu like regular, just keep the legs very short from the knot to the hooks. Keep them about 4 inches or so. A traditional snafu would have legs like 8, 10, 12 inches. And the reason I use these very short hooks is because they're very short legs is because when I hook the fish in the mouth with one leg and the other hook gets the fish in the belly or back by the tail, the fish will not be able to. I've actually had snafus ripped apart where a big fish, again, big fish do things. One hook hooks him in the mouth, the other hook hooks him back by the tail, and the rig comes out. All of a sudden, you lose a big fish, and the rip comes up torn apart. And it's like, what happened? So by using very short legs like this, it eliminates that from happening, and it still lets me get the 2 hooks in the crab the way I want. And this is actually a V rig right here, and I'm going to get into that in just a minute on the next slide.
And the only real difference between the V rig and the snafu rig, I guess you're going to go into it now, is really just how the line sticks out from that point.
Well, this is actually a triple surgeon's loop, meaning I take a 30-inch piece of leader, I snell a hook on each end, I find the middle. Okay, and normally when I'm tying these, I have a little vise at my table with an eye bolt on it, and I'll put this in there, and I'll find the middle, and I'll pull tight, and I'll just go back with the double line, and I'll just do an overhand knot once, twice, 3 times, and then I'll pull it tight. And this is what it looks like. It's just 3 passes of an overhand knot. I'll pull it nice and tight. It lays beautifully.
And that's the rigging that you recommended, and I tied up a couple of them, and I used them that day. And I mean, I loved it. That's now my go-to instead of the slider rig. I had been using the slider rigs, and just from hearing your story, it traumatized me. So I switched over.
You know what? I heard it. Tom Daffy told me. I didn't listen to him. It happened to me not once but twice. I might be a little bit hard-headed, brother, but I ain't that stupid. I'll catch on eventually. In this slide here, you can see different versions of the V-rig, where in this original version of the V-rig, you would actually take this double line and clip it right here and have a single leg of line come up and tie a double surgeon's loop at the top. And you would tie in that way. The reason you tie a double surgeon's loop is because a perfection loop will fail. I've been an advocate of a perfection loop for a lot of years, but under extreme pressure, that perfection loop will bite into itself and it will pop, and the double surgeon's loop doesn't. So the knot I tie at the top would be a double surgeon's loop. But in using this V-rig for a while, I realized something. I'm like, rather than clipping this off and tying it and making a knot, and then I have to worry about this pulling through or this knot here, why not just leave this alone? So I talked to a friend of mine who's a captain down south. Captain Tanner Verdon, who was an excellent mate for a lot of years. And I just had to confirm with him. I was like, Tanner, why am I cutting this leg off on the V rig? And he goes, I don't cut the leg off the V rig. I fish them just like this. I'm like, okay, again, there's that stupid gene coming in. So, it was enough for me to modify it like this. But Tom Daffin will tie this small snafu with these short legs here, and he'll clip the one leg and go up and tie a double surgeon. Tom usually ties this with 80 or 100.
Yeah, a little bit more leeway for.
Yeah, and he just likes that. He just prefers that way, and that there's no way I'm going to say anything doesn't work.
Hey,
you don't play.
No, and I mean, and like anything else, right? There's more than one way to skin a cat, but you need a starting point. So someone who's not sure what rig to start with, I mean, here you go.
Right. Less knots, less failure points. That's a crab baited with a V rig, and you can see right there that, like I said, the two legs on either side, the hooks going in and coming out, and there's that infamous red sinker. By the way, funny story with that, bro. I go fishing with my buddy Mark and Sully one time, and we're on one of Mark's charters, and he invited this one guy on this charter, and he's a really good fisherman. But man, you spend 5 minutes on the boat with him, he'll just tell you how good he is. He's really, really good fisherman. Well, we're on the boat, and he starts busting on Mark about the red sinker. You don't need the red sinker. I'm catching all these fish, and he's in the back corner, and he's catching some little fish, and it's all good, right? And I'm fishing in the front corner, and he's in the back corner. Well, he's using his shiny sinker, and sure enough, man, as time went on, Mark starts catching fish. He starts catching dogfish with his shiny. He's catching dogfish after dogfish after dogfish. At the same time he got hot with the dogfish, I got hot with roasters, and I'm catching like 6-7 pound fish, one after the other, after the other, after the other. And as I'm unhooking them, I'm throwing them on the floor back so they're hitting him in the back of his legs. He's trying not to look at me. And sure enough, by the way in, he's like, so what's the story with the red sinker?
Yeah, you can only take so much before you want to know what.
I was like, yeah, I said, it's just my lucky color. I just like red. Here's a single hook rig. Again, there's that little tiny crab. This one happens to have a little cheese on it. And I cut the legs off of one side, and there's a 6-aught hook hooked in there. And that's just about ready to go down there and do some damage. The smaller crabs, I might just step on them a little bit. But those bigger crabs, before I drop them in, I'm probably going to drop it on the deck and give it a little crunch before I drop it in there. I call that a Cape May pancake.
I was going to ask you, and if you're going to get into it a little bit later, you can just tell me. But when you're going, everyone's seen it. When you're on a tog boat, and those guys that do it a lot, the experienced guys, they go into the crab bin and they pick through. They move them around. I want that one, that one. What are you looking for? Are you one of those guys? I mean, I didn't notice too much, but it did seem like you wanted something specific, either the size or.
I've caught plenty of fish on big giant soup crabs. Put two hooks in them, step on it 3 or 4 times, and throw it to the bottom and let her eat, man. But if it's a day where there's a lot of mixed sizes in there, I might want to have a couple small crabs in case the conditions are gonna let them eat that. Sometimes if I'm using that 3-4 inch crab and I'm dropping it to the bottom, and maybe I've had 2-3, maybe I've had a couple hits with that and they're just not finishing it, then maybe I'll put 2 small crabs on these hooks. Just 2 small ones and let it go down there and see if that's enough to make them come back.
Just one whole one on each one.
Yeah, just something a little bit different. I do want to have some small ones in case I want to go with a 1 hook rig. It is nice when I get the crabs with a little bit of cheese on the bottom like that. That's always a good thing. Again, we're going to go kind of right to the advanced class here, okay? Sometimes if you're having trouble getting them to eat, it's not a bad idea to use like a very small, clean bait. And to do that, I'm probably going to want to look through there and get like a smallish female crab for whatever the reason. And I'll cut that small crab in half, and I'll put a nice, small, clean piece of bait that's easy for them to eat. No legs, shell on, nice and easy just to get them going. Once they come in and they start eating, they'll eat pretty much anything. But if for some reason, if they're really difficult, I particularly find that true like early in the year. when they come in and they're kind of picky and, and they're eating clam and they're eating cooked shrimp and they're doing all that crazy cold water stuff. Once you get them going, they'll eat real good. That was a great question.
Yeah, and I've never really known even why I do what I do. I just kind of like wing it, right? So I'll start whatever way. Maybe I'm cutting all the legs off, cutting it in half, putting it whole, however I start. And then if I see the guy next to me catch two, I'm looking and I'm like, oh, he left the second and the fourth leg on. Let me try that. Like, it gets kind of crazy in my head, and I've always just kind of thought it's just in my head, just for myself to. But I do see a lot of guys cherry picking through the crabs, looking for what it seems, something it seems like.
A lot of times, a very, very large crab will make a lot of drag on the current on the bottom. Yeah. So, the same thing if I get a really large crab and I cut them in half and I'm fishing two big halves of a crab, the amount of resistance on the water on that moving it around. And I understand the theory of that. That way they have two really nice baits. If one gets beat up, the other one still looks good. But if I'm fishing a nice crab and I put two hooks in it and I step on it a couple times and I drop it to the bottom, if that fish comes up and eats it a little bit and there's still a little bit of a mush left on that one, he's probably going to eat that just fine, And again, that's something in the Cape May waters from Atlantic City down south. I just find this deadly on larger fish.
That's what we're here for. Get those larger ones.
Yeah. Here's a decompression. And part of focusing on larger fish is trying to find a way to get away from the small fish. Just ignore them. Yeah. Ignore them. When you get that bite, when you get that tap, just don't. You can swing on that.
Yeah, if you really want to make that commitment to targeting a bigger fish, you do. You have to change what you do, and you have to accept the fact that you're not trying to fill your cooler with keepers. It's different.
And I don't really know if you don't really know if it's a big fish or if a small fish when it's eaten. But when I wait for the good committed tug, when I get the good, then I know that the small fish or large fish has it in its throat, and then it's time to swing. Here's a decompression tool that we were using on Fish and Fever when we were out in some deeper water. And this particular tool is it's set at 100 foot to release. So Tom actually has this set on that rod there with those sinkers. And after we pull up a fish from the deep water and his eyes are a little bugged out and he's got a little pucker going on his butt, when we want to release this thing, Tom will take it and hook it onto this thing. And this will, as quick as possible, get it back down into the deeper water. And when it gets down to 100 foot, it pops off, and that fish it came up and it went through the change in compression, and now we're getting him back down there where he can. And when it hits 100 foot, it automatically releases and the fish pops off that thing. So that was pretty cool. So I wanted to, include it in this year's seminar.
Yeah, no, it's a nice tool, and it's, if it's going to help release these bigger fish, I mean, it's worth it.
Yeah, and even the small fish, whatever comes up from that depth. And something I should probably mention too. I mean, I've had a pretty good year this year, but something I started a couple years ago is I don't keep the females. I don't keep the females, and I don't keep anything like over 7 pounds. I just don't need it. Plenty of good eating fish out there. We'll keep all the guys. We let all the chicks go. And usually me and my guys, we all kind of have that same philosophy. And to keep in mind, I mean, if a guy goes out with me and he catches an 8-pounder and that's his biggest fish, or a 10 or 12 or 20, and he wants to keep it, God bless him. It's his fish. I have no right to tell him keep it or not. It's your fish. You can stick a knife in its head, do whatever you want. It doesn't matter to me. I have no right to tell you what to do with your fish. So there's no self-righteous, we got to release everything. You do whatever you want. In the same time, I do want to do my part. But I find it very hard in America to start shaming people into releasing these fish. It's like people get way too serious.
I always say the same thing. It's like, I don't want more regulations. I don't want the state. I don't want the fishing game to make more regulations saying you can't keep a fish this big or whatever. But what I do want the anglers to make the decision to release bigger fish whenever they can. And that's, I'm not same as you. I'm not going to tell someone they can't keep a big fish. Maybe it's the first fish they catch. They don't know if they're going to catch another one. They haven't eaten tog. Their dad loves tog, hasn't eaten it in years. I don't know what the story is. It's totally their right to keep it. I'm not going to tell anyone they can't keep a fish. I just hope that you just want anglers to understand that a bigger fish is worth more in the water, even if you like eating fish and you want to take your limit home. Those bigger fish are still worth more in the water, even to that angler, because just their spawning habits, they spawn better, they lay more eggs, they it's just worth really more. Good genes. Yeah,
that big, he's a genetically superior.
Yes, exactly, and it's just that fish is worth more in the water, but. Well, we don't have to tell Joe to release fish. He tried. Tried to. What happened on the boat, Joe?
That was the Dauntless.
Right? No, even on this last trip with Frank. Remember?
Oh yeah, that one too. Yeah, I always try to throw him back. I try not to kill him.
Joe got it. Remember, Joe got a nice fish, and then he took some pictures, and he goes towards the side, and everyone's like, "Whoa, what are you doing?"
Well, when we're on a trip like that, and we're all trying to release all the females, we still want to take some fish home because everybody wants to take home a bag of fish.
How do you identify a female?
Well, that fish right there is a female. It's mottled brown on the sides. The male fish will usually be more of like the gray on top with the white bottom, or brown on top with the white bottom, and the larger males tend to have more of the bulbous chin. So the male, that picture of that fish earlier, and the one I'm going to show you at the end, that's a male, very distinctive looking. And this is the Jay Leno. Dennis is laughing right now. But that right there is a female. Techniques. Now there's a male. Okay. This is just ways to try to get this fish to eat your crab. Okay. Scratch, smack. This is something that I really find more and more happening lately. And it's something that I've seen people do, and I've noticed it more and more over the years, so I'm going to address it. You get your crab to the bottom, you get a little scratch, non-committal bite, and that's it. They're all done. Put another crab in, drop it to the bottom, same thing, scratch, non-committal bite. What I'll notice is sometimes with a little bit of motion, the fish, and just for a second, I don't see that camera working. I'm sure it is working, right? Okay, but I don't. Can I see the output on there? I just want to make sure I'm in the picture, not off screen. You know what I mean? Perfect. Okay. Okay, here we go. So when they get, I don't need to pee. I'm okay. So talking about techniques, when you get into the scratch bite and they're just not finishing it, sometimes I find that a little tiny movement of the bait will elicit a aggressive bite, just that somehow something triggers them, that maybe they're afraid the bait's going to go away or something. But again, without wanting to start bouncing your sinker. So what I'll do to move it a little bit is when I have my rod in my hand and I feel it, and I feel a little tap, sometimes I'll give my rod tip a little shake where I'll just go boop, 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 without moving the sinker. And sometimes I'll literally just smack it. I'll just smack the butt of the rod, boom, boom. And I had a trip this year, and I don't think it was the trip you were on, but I cast out and I drop it to the bottom. I get a little tap, and I get a boom, and I get another tap, and I got a boom. And I was playing with this fish. It was kind of silly. It was like 4 times, and then he finally just boom, he crushed it. It really made me realize, like, wow, this is really a thing. This isn't just like a nervous little thing I like to do. This really did make him eat it, and it was pretty cool. Making him finish the bait. Again, sometimes that little bit of movement without bouncing the sinker will get him to come in and eat it. Now we're going to talk about your favorite, Joe, and there's that red sinker again. Fishing a slack line. Fishing a slack line means keeping your line taut, but not overly tight. And it means not bouncing your sinker off the bottom, which means as the boat rocks or swings, you need to be able to move a little bit. So when you drop your sinker to the bottom and it comes tight, usually I will kind of come slack, and I'll usually hold my rod about like this, and I'll just sit here just like this. And you can see I'm actually fishing a slack line right here. So as the boat goes up, my rod goes down. As the boat goes down, my rod goes up, and I can just sit there and fish this rod effortlessly because it's very balanced and it sits here perfect. When I do get a little tap, 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 I'll come tight on the fish and I'm ready to swing. Okay. Another reason I like this reel is because if the boat does move a little bit, I can release a little bit of line. When I need to take a little line up, I can take a little up, which is another reason why the 5-to-1 gear ratio is just perfect. When you have a 6 or 7 gear ratio, it takes up line so quick that it might be a half a turn to take up the line. And then when the handle's up there, and then the handle just kind of like, the handle will just like fall down, and it's like, ooh, so it, again, too high of a gear ratio is not always a good thing. But the idea of fishing a slack line, do not move your sinker. Do not move your sinker. Bouncing the sinker can be a detriment.
And you mentioned something about the tightness of that line in the water too, with the sound. And
yeah. Actually, that's on the screen right now. Putting a bow in the line. When we're fishing these braided lines, and Joe, we were talking about this earlier, fishing these braided lines, I mean, maybe I'm a little over analytical, but sometimes did you ever sit there and listen to the braided line in the wind when they're up in the rod holders and you hear this bzzz, I can't help but think that the braided line is kind of like a steel cable in the water. And sometimes when you're fishing a very tight line, that the current flowing past a line, if there's a lot of current, how come the fish aren't eating? And when I have a very tight line, I think it may emit this sound or vibration that makes the fish not eat. So I'll do what's called putting a bow in the line. And what that means is, like right now, my sinker is tight on my rod. I'll literally disengage my reel. I'll lift my rod tip up. I'll maybe let 3 or 4 feet of line come out. I'll re-engage. I'll put it down, and I'll let the current take the slack out of my line, meaning I will literally, from the sinker to my rod, there will be a little bit of a bow in the line, a little bit of slack. You'll still feel the fish. And when you feel the fish biting, you're going to reel up and take the slack out of the line. But if you don't get the bite, you don't catch the fish. Sometimes putting this bow in the line will absolutely make these fish come up and crush this bait.
And I told you the story. I lived this. Mm-hmm. I was at the point just a couple of years ago where I knew how to blackfish, not to the experience level that I'm at now or anywhere near what you're at or any of these other guys. But bro,
you're not doing bad.
I knew not to, I knew you don't bounce the sinker. I knew you wanted to keep it still and all those basic stuff. And that's how I was fishing. I knew my sinker wasn't moving, but I was trying to stay pretty close to it. I'm moving with the boat. I want to feel that bite. My 2 buddies, one on the side, one behind me, they're catching fish. And I'm getting a little scratch here and there. I'm not getting any good bites. I'm not hooking up. And after a handful of fish, I'm not the guy that's going to sit there just stubborn trying to do it. I'm like, you guys, you want to give me a clue here to what's going on? Like, I'm using the same rigs. I know what I'm doing. What's going on? They laughed a little bit, caught another fish before they busted my balls, didn't want to tell me right away. And then they told me just that. They said, throw it out, put slack in the line. I said, oh, I'm going to miss a fish if there's slack in the line. No, don't worry about it. Throw it out there. So I did it. And I'm still trying. I couldn't let go of that. I gotta maintain contact with a semi-taut line because I want to feel. And they said, no, put slack in the line, more slack. And I'm like, more. And I put that big bow in the line, and they're like, yeah, just like that. And I'm sitting there thinking, well, I'm not going to feel the fish. It's like, don't worry about it. Sure enough, just like they said, just like you said, that fixed. Then you started getting the bites. That fixed whatever it was, whether it be the sound from the tight line or, the sinker moving a little bit, whatever it was, that fixed it. That bigger bow in the line, that slack line.
Well, that the same guy that tells you got to fish really tight.
Yeah.
That's the same guy that says you got to swing on them really fast. Blackfish are really fast. As soon as they hit, you got to swing on them. You know that guy? That's the guy that doesn't catch any big fish. Just remember that. When there's people telling you things, telling you this, how to do this, how to do that, he might be the guy that's really, really good at catching little fish. How you fish for big fish is a completely different game. Now here's a picture of me fishing a slack line. And fishing a slack line basically means, again, like I said, just having a very, very balanced rod, and you can just sit there and relax and fish a slack line. So as the boat's going up and down, you're able to keep in contact with the rod and reel. And you're very balanced, so it's easy. If you're fishing a heavy rod, it's going to be harder. You're going to have to kind of hold it. But fishing a well-balanced outfit will be kind of effortless, so it won't get you so tired at the end of the day. But picture for a minute when you are fishing like this. I mean, what's going on down there? What's going on with your bait? There's times when smaller fish come over and you get a little scratch, and all of a sudden it stops. Don't swing. Don't swing. Let it be. The reason you're fishing these whole crabs is you have plenty of bait. They can survive a couple scratches and a couple good whomps, and you still have bait. You might get smaller fish come over and tap on the bait, and all of a sudden the small fish go away. Sometimes that's because a big fish will come over and literally bully those little fish off this piece of bait. And that does happen. I mean, it's very attractive to the big fish. He might not see the crab, but he sees the small fish doing something. So he comes over, oh, there's some bait. And he might push those little fish off. He might turn around and chew right then and there. He might just crush it. Or he might just turn around and kind of lay his belly. He might push it around a little bit with his chin. Or he might just literally lay on it to keep the other fish from eating it. You know what I mean? He'll just literally lay on it to kind of protect it. And again, we're thinking about the big dominant fish. We're not thinking about little guys. Yeah. Sometimes you feel an odd pressure in your line. You might feel like you feel the weight. It might almost feel like
almost like you're getting stuck kind of.
Yeah, but it's again, just don't move your bait. It's one of the weird sensations that I get when a blackfish will be like laying on the bait. And he's like laying on my leader or laying on my top shot, where I'll feel this odd little bit of pressure. Just don't move your bait. Just give it a couple minutes, because it's the time when something's happening. Fishing large baits always give you enough meat to get bit. During times of the day, there's usually a thing I call the big fish window. And a lot of times it's time for me to stay really focused. It's when the action slows. Some guys are going in there and they're getting their sandwiches out and stuff. And Joe, we were talking about it earlier. I'm just in the corner, stepping on my crabs and doing my thing, man. Because when the action slows, it might be the tide is changing. Maybe it's starting to slow. Maybe it's starting to change direction. This may be the time when all of a sudden 2 or 3 guys in the boat will all get big fish. Get a fresh bait on, get on a nice piece and get ready. And what I mean by that is get on a nice piece. Sometimes we're sitting on a wreck, and I may be flipping out a little bit, and I feel like I'm on sand, and I'll literally drag my sinker back. I'm not hopping it, but I'll literally drag it through sand, and then I feel something hard and I'll stop. And I'll just let it sit there. Okay, you're on a nice new piece. You got a new bait. Just let it soak. Give it some time, because this may be the period of time when the big fish chew their faces off. There's a lot of times when all of a sudden, all day long, 2 guys on the boat have double-digit fish on at the same time. We've been there all day. How can this happen? How can we each get double-digit fish at the same time? Or maybe it's within 20 minutes of each other and there's 3 of them come up. Something in the conditions is making these fish come out and feed at this time. Don't question it. Just be ready.
Eddie Mackin's Rippin' Lips Fishing Trips is now booking for the 2025 fishing season on Lake Apacon. He's also offering $50 off for anyone who books a trip before April 1st. So if you want to book a trip this year with Eddie Mackin on Lake Apacon, now is the time to do it. There's so many species in that lake, I'm not even going to name them all, but Eddie fishes for all of them. So call Eddie Mackin's Rippin' Lips Fishing Trips today.
And a lot of fishing tends to be like that, I feel like, where fish don't eat all day. They pick whatever the variable is, and there's a lot of them. I don't even want to think about it. Your head will spin. But there's some variables that they're going to pick the most efficient, effective time for them to get food without expending the energy, right? That's what makes sense, and that's what they're going to do instinctually. And then bigger fish, I feel like even more so want to pick those times because they want to expend even less energy and get more food for bang for their buck.
Exactly.
And that's, I think, why that happens. And it happens with a lot of fish. So
very true. Whether it's the moon phase or whatever it is. I mean, we could talk about what makes blackfish bite different on different days.
The south wind.
Oh, kiss of death. Kiss of death.
Yeah. Why? What makes the south wind so bad?
A lot of times the south wind will create an upwelling in bottom current, which means it'll make the bottom water colder, and that'll mess up the fish. A lot of times extended periods of high pressure, especially inshore, if you're fishing in shallower water, you might have 3 or 4 days of bluebird skies and barometric pressure like over 30. And day 1 and day 2 and day 3, day 1, 2, and 3, you're catching fish like crazy. And you go out there on the 4th day and you're trying to catch fish and you literally cannot even get bit. And I think sometimes the high pressure, and I'm talking about like fishing in the bays. I'm not talking about offshore. Offshore, really, I've never seen this. But in the back bays, I've seen it where that extended pressure, I think it literally like gives the fish a headache or something. For some reason, literally the day before, I couldn't not get bit. And 24 hours later, me and a guy, and we got like literally 2 bites all day. And it's like, absolute shutdown. Water temperature the same, weather pattern the same, nothing else happened except for that. So the big fish bite, what is it like? Remember I talked to you about that 13.5 pounder earlier that looked just like the 17.5? Well, here's a 17.5. Doesn't it look just like the 13.5?
I mean, it looks a hell of a lot more like Jay Leno than the other one even.
But they look very similar, right?
Yeah.
And that's a male fish. How big fish bite, okay? There's a thing called the heavy bite. And what I mean by that is when you're sitting there and you're holding your rod and you do feel a bite, sometimes your hook will just feel heavy. It'll just feel like something's just hanging on, okay? And when I say these things, I'm saying when you feel this, wait a couple seconds. And when you acknowledge it, swing like hell. This is your chance, okay? So the heavy bite, all of a sudden there will just be weight there. Sometimes you just get the classic womp, 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 where the fish will just come up and you'll just get boom, 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 boom. When that happens, don't swing too fast. I usually try to wait till like 3. Just give him a chance. He's got a big mouth. He's got that crab in there. You're not going to take it away. So give it 3, 4 good shots.
And that's really tough for someone just getting into blackfishing who has fished for a lot of other species. It's really, really tough to ignore. You're basically ignoring a strike on your bait. And
especially because you have people giving you advice like saying, these fish are really fast. You got to swing on them right away. That's the same guy that says elephants eat peanuts, right? I mean, that's the guy. Yeah, you need to put that guy in the other side of the boat. Right? Womp, womp, womp. The pick up and run. Sometimes you're sitting there, you don't feel anything. All of a sudden, you feel your sinker bouncing across the bottom. Boom, 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 boom. Get down, get tight, swing like hell, because little fish do not do that. The wave, the only way I can describe the wave is it's like when I picture it as when I'm fishing and I can feel my sinker on the bottom, and I think the fish comes up and eats the bait on a slack leader. Like the leader's not tight on the top shot where he's like pulling it. He just comes up and eats and it's there. And you feel this little woo, woo, woo.
It's different, but you're not sure.
It's almost like, ooh, is that something happening? Again, for some reason, these are things that I've seen big fish do that little fish don't do. And what I'm saying is, don't wait for this to happen. When you get fish eating your bait, small fish, big fish, fish every bait the same way, set the hook the same way, fight every fish the same way, fight every small fish like it's a big fish. Because when you get a big fish, you should be on autopilot. Okay, there's muscle memory. There's things you do. Practice on every fish. And when you get a big fish, you'll beat a man. The locked in hook set. And this is where I'm going with this. Okay, again, this rod specifically for the way I fish. When you do get that hit and it's time to swing, okay, get the rod tip all the way up. At the same time you get the rod tip up, your top hand pulls the rod towards your chest. The bottom hand pushes your rod butt in front of your hip, okay? You are absolutely locked in. This is the ultimate lever here, okay? This is your fulcrum. You've swung this 8-foot rod probably about 8 feet just by simple movement. You immediately get on the reel, which again, this short butt, you're immediately on the reel. You're at a very strong position here. It's close to your body. If this reel were out here and you were holding it like this, you would see you would lose a lot of arm strength here. Because this is also close, you're in a very strong position. Drag is on murder. Just crank this thing until that fish stops you. You're going to crank like hell. The fish is going to stop you. The rod's going to cork over. You have that fish 20 feet off the bottom before he knows he's in trouble.
And that's the key. I mean,
that's it.
You can't let them take. If you don't get them out of that structure, you lost before you even started playing, really.
Joe, you saw me do it on smaller fish. You didn't see me get to do this with a really large fish, but you see I'm on autopilot. The swing, the hook set, immediately on the reel. The rod corks over. Now it's time to play. Now you have to fight this fish this particular way.
Now, Joe tries to give me a hard time until he told me to ask you, because I like to have the rod in my right hand and the reel handle on my left. Mm-hmm. But I can do the same thing just in reverse, opposite side.
Yeah, I'm with the reel, and this is the way I fish. Okay, this is the way I'm trying to help new guys land these big fish. Ultimate respect to the guys that are awesome fishermen, that are way better than I am ever going to be. Okay, I don't care what they do; they can do whatever they want. There is no questioning their ability. This is something that a new guy can do that will really help them land that fish. Okay, so if you took this rod and used a left-handed reel, I think rather than you swinging this way, you're simply going to fish this way and you're going to swing this way. Now, I do sometimes, depending on what side of the boat I'm fishing on, I will fish this way and immediately I'll fish the same way, but then I switch hands here and I get on the reel this way. So you could absolutely do it the way you're talking about. You would just fish it on the left side of your body, get locked in, get on the reel right here. Okay?
So basically, Joe should stop busting my balls about having.
You should absolutely stop. Joe got zero game, bro. Only kidding you, Joe. Only kidding you.
Take another break for you to take a piss. The eternal tinkler. No, this is good. All right.
This is almost too much fun. It really is. The big fish fight. Okay, what you're going to do when you're fighting this fish? We hook the fish. The fish is off the bottom. You're holding this fish. You are locked in. What do? The fish is heading head towards the bottom. The tail is pulsating. That's what's making your rod go like this. It's the strong pulsations of the fish's tail. The head's not shaking. The tail's not hitting the line. It's the propulsion pulses as he heads down that is making that rod thump like this. Set the hook the same way on every fish, small or large. Practice fighting each fish this way. Set the hook like you mean it. Again, drag is locked up. If you're lucky, when you get this fish off the bottom, slow down. Don't panic. Your time for immediate action was early. Now it's time to just slow down. Because when you have the fish like this, you have steady pressure on him, okay? Be ready for several surges, because when the fish know they're in trouble, they're going to try to get a second wind. Basically, when you hook that fish and he's dogging, he's gonna stop dogging and he's gonna turn. He's gonna make a mistake, he's gonna turn. You're gonna start getting a couple cranks on him. The rod's gonna come up, you're gonna get some cranks on him. He's gonna start coming up. As he's coming up, he's going to start diving down again. So as you're reeling this fish up and he starts diving down again, that's when I would bow down to the fish. And if I'm not like this, I would have the rod under my arm at this point, because you don't fight the fish like this the whole time. Eventually, once you get them off the bottom, you're going to move the rod under your arm. When that fish starts to go down again, bow down to him and let him go. Even putting the rod tip in the water. Yeah, bow down to that fish to relieve some of the pressure. When he does again turn and start coming back up, that's a good time to drop a couple clicks off my drag. Okay, I might drop 2, maybe 3 clicks off that drag. When they do make surges to the bottom, that's when all the pressure is on your rig and everything. Move that rod butt under your arm at this point in time. And believe me, you're not going to have to tell anybody anything. Everybody on the whole boat is going to know you have a nice one on. I knew you had that nice fish on. About 10 seconds after, it wasn't even 10 seconds. It was about 3 seconds. I knew you had a nice one on because I could see you set the hook on it and it didn't really move. It just kind of like stuck there. And then all of a sudden I see it move and I saw, and I was like, whoa, okay, here we go. Little fish seem to be like, the way they swim. Big fish are like, whoa, like big, powerful tails. Everyone's going to know you have this nice fish on. The mate's going to be by your side. He's going to be there with the net. You're in 100 foot of water. You got a little bit of time here, okay? Here is a video of me, Joe. You actually took this video, and this is after I set the hook, and I'm just early in on the fight here, okay? You see, I'm starting to bow down a little. Fish is...
And like you said, at first, you don't know the size of the fish. You only get that after you start fighting it. So
now I move it under my arm, and you see, I'm not reeling really fast. See, he's dogging again. I'm just reeling, I'm reeling them slow, steady, even pressure. I'm taking what I get. He's not an overly large fish, but you fight every fish the same way.
And at this point, you in your mind kind of know the size of this fish.
It's kind of, it's okay.
That's a nice fish.
It's nothing big. It's okay.
That's a Joe releaser.
All of a sudden, there's deep color. The fish is starting to come up. Don't panic. Everything's happening in slow motion. It's like when you're a hockey goalie, man, and everything is happening slow. Just stay calm. Don't panic. When you're reeling it in and you see the top shot coming up and you see braid, you see the mono top shot coming up, as you're reeling, give the tip a little dip. Let the knot come through your guides nice and easy.
Yeah, especially if that knot is not clean. I've had it where you do it and I'm like, that'll be all right. It'll get caught in there because of that pressure and that if the angle's too steep, it'll get caught in there. You'll lose a fish like that very easily.
And this is when you want to make sure you don't lift the fish's head out of the water. And this is where staying calm is the name of the game. What direct his swimming towards the side the mate is on, and the mate will do his job. And what I mean by that is, like, Chris, if you're netting the fish and you're beside me, as I have this fish like 3/4 of the way up, I'm actually going to hold the rod away from you, and I'm going to keep reeling up. And unless it's a giant fish, I can control it a little. As I start to get him up, when he's a few feet below, when he's like 4 or 5 feet below the surface, I'm going to crank up till he's like maybe 3 feet down. I'm going to actually move my rod towards you. So the fish is swimming towards you. You put the fish in the net, okay? When that happens, and this is critical, so you don't destroy your gear. The fish is in the net. Lift your rod, tip up, put the reel in free spool.
And I feel like just taking one step back, I feel like that's a mistake I see a lot of guys make. A lot of times it's just out of like excitement. They're fighting the fish already towards the guy with the net. Mm-hmm. And then when the fish is at the surface, they don't have any room to work with anymore. And then also, and that second or two between the net getting under the fish and the fish just sitting there, a lot of times goes on a slack line. If that fish decides to make a dive or a run or something while you have a slack line, there's a good chance that hook comes out.
Oh yeah, things go bad really, really quick.
Yeah, it's a really simple thing, what you just described, giving yourself that extra room away from the net. But it's huge, really. It's simple, but huge, and it's not something that guys typically think of in the excitement. And I've seen it a lot of times. They just, all of a sudden, they're right there. Oh, net my fish. Yeah. Okay, he's gone, but...
The fish is 8 feet away from it. The fish is 8 feet away from you. Why? If I think about it, and if I can swim the fish towards you, you have that big net in the water, and it swims right into the net.
It's just,
hey, touchdown.
And it's just that extra space to do what you need to do.
Game over, bro. That's the moment.
Don't fumble on the goal line.
Here's my good friend Dennis Mullenforth. He sent me these couple videos the other day. This is Dennis on a fishing trip on Fishbound a week ago. And there's a couple videos back to back, and he's reeling up a 22-pounder. So enjoy. Again, Dennis,
22-pounder,
exceptionally skilled angler, been there many times, true gentleman. Again, look at how. Don't worry about how Dennis is holding the rod, or this guy has more double-digit blackfish than I'll allow. So just watch his technique. Watch when he drops a couple of clicks off. Dennis.
Man, and I can't imagine the fish pulling the way this thing, how you can see how hard it's pulling.
See how he's bowing down?
Yeah.
Oh, that's the one.
I got you, Dennis. And these rods are stout, and you can just see this fish, the pressure.
Very mechanically and slowly.
Yeah.
When the fish gives him a couple of turns, he went faster. The fish was coming up. Now he slows down.
Next one. Got it. Jesus. Got it.
This was a long fight.
Gotta be a 30-pound fish.
How long I think it was total.
Gotta be a 30-pound fish.
Maybe a couple minutes. In that last video, you could see Dennis take a couple clicks off the drag 2 times.
No. Oh my God. Giant.
I couldn't imagine 15 pounders.
Not like you didn't have enough already.
Imagine 22 Like it's a whole
Every bit of 19
size, beautiful 7-pound keeper. Bigger.
Every bit of 19 pounds. Every bit of 19 pounds.
I told you.
They still don't know how big it is.
Bulldog.
Eyeball.
What do you get on that? Like 18?
Gotta be 19 and a half. Jesus. Gotta be 19 and a half.
3 bar.
Gotta be 19 and a half. Easy.
22 flat. Wow. 22 flat.
It's a female.
Oh my God. It's his birthday, right?
That's Kevin Twilly to mate on. He's mating on Fishbound this day. These guys are exceptionally skilled fishermen at this game. Captain Kane Bounds on Fishbound, Kevin Twilly, best in the business. Dennis Mullenforth, a true class guy. I've seen Dennis catch more big fish. He is an exceptionally skilled angler, and he's a true gentleman. Such a great dude. Here's the moment. Congratulations on your new PB. And Chris, just like you, it's kind of the moment. Everything happens, man. There's just handshakes and hugs coming at you. Everybody's so happy that we're almost happier for you than we are if we caught it, if that makes any sense to you.
I don't know about that. I don't think Joe was happier with me catching it than him.
I got my PB.
Or were you happy that I caught that?
It wasn't a DD, but it was my PB.
Well, we'll celebrate that.
It says, congrats on your new PB.
It is a true accomplishment.
It doesn't say DD.
You know, when you get that fish out of the water, you get a couple pictures on it, get a weight on it, get a length, take a couple pics. If you're going to keep the fish around for a couple minutes, throw them in the live well or throw them in a tote of water, let them hang out for a couple minutes and maybe reacclimate to the pressure change. If you want to take more pictures, if not, let them go right away. If you want to take a couple more pics and then see if you can let them go, put them in the net, put them in the water if he wants to go. Part of the reason why Dennis rolled them up so nice and slowly and smoothly was to let him, number one, it's a very effective way of not losing a giant fish. It also lets the fish acclimate to the change in depth pressure better, so he doesn't shred his intestines, or sometimes their gills will literally just start bleeding from the depth change. Their eyeballs will pop out. If the fish is bleeding, it's pretty tough. It's probably not going to survive, because if the fish is bleeding up here and you drop him in the water and he goes into the increased water depth at 80 feet or 100 feet, there's more pressure, so he bleeds out quicker. If the air bladder shoots out of the butt a little bit, that'll be fine. That usually comes right back in. If his intestines shred and his intestines are literally hanging out, he's shot. So you can't always release a big fish. That's what I mean. It's not always practical. People are so quick to pass judgment and they're trying to shame people and this and that. It's like, it's very easy to say those people do not know what they're talking about.
I always thought it was weird. Like, you're fishing. You're jamming a hook into a fish's face to get it up to net it. You're not crocheting or like do something else. If you have that much of a problem with it, Passing
judgment on people is tough, man. It's the same thing. Like if we're out to lunch and I order a cheeseburger and you tell me I really ought to order the Reuben, who the hell are you? It's my fish. If I want to let it go, I let it go. If I want to stick a knife in its head, it's what I do. It's my fish. That's why we're in America, brother. You know what I mean? And keep in mind, I do love to let them go. I love but you just, you have to enjoy that with people.
You can choose to let go of all the big fish. You can want to do it. It still doesn't give you the right to tell someone else to do it. That's just the way it is.
Right,
I don't know
right.
why people can't wrap their heads around that.
It's not their fish, man. It's not their fish.
I can release every big fish I catch and still be okay with someone else keeping every big fish they catch because that's what they want to do.
Sure. That 13.5 pounder I caught last spring, it was mid-April. And we unhooked it and we had it in the net. Man, it looked like it was ready to go. And it swam down about 4 feet and it just like, boom, and just floated right back up to the surface. And we couldn't grab it with the net. And the fish started floating away. The fish floated away for 1.5 miles. The captain was watching it because he saw a bird diving down on the fish. I swear to God, like an hour later, Captain Tom Daffin pulls up the hooks. We got to go get that fish. I'm like, I'm going to find that fish. I'll find that fish. Goes right up there, puts the fish in it. I'm like, holy, how the hell did he do that? Amazing, just amazing. But that fish, the poor thing wouldn't go, man. And it faked us out. It looked like it was going to go and it wouldn't happen. What can you do? What can the average person get from this seminar to help them land double-digit tog? The first thing, simple, man, open up your mind and choose to evolve as an angler. As much as we all like to think we're great and we're all stuck in our ways, if you really want to play this game, try to take a little word of advice. Listen to the captain because he really wants you to catch big fish. Pay attention and ask for help if it's something you're not sure of or something. If you're on a boat with some highly skilled guys, who better to talk to and get opinions from? I mean, These are the cream of the crop dudes. They will share it with you. When they do share it with you, pay attention and try it. If you ask somebody their opinion and you give them your opinion and they say, oh yeah, but I don't do it that way. I do it this way. It's like, well, what are you asking me for? You know what I mean? It's kind of like, well, why even bother? When you get the chance on these boats, work hard. Use proven tackle, rigs, and techniques. Try to remember these things and try to apply them into your game. When you're on the boat, keep an eye on the hot angler and copy his bait and presentation exactly. Joe, when we were fishing that day, that one part in the day when I started getting pretty hot, I noticed you started fishing this the same way, and it got you a couple fish. I don't know why that happens, but by all means, keep an eye out on the guy who's the hot angler.
He ain't stupid. He's not going to watch you catch fish and not try to copy you.
Good for him, bro. Good for him. Believe me, I think how cynical would it be if I'm out here trying to catch these big fish and I'm begrudging you if you catch one too? Why would I not want you to feel that same? It's pride, accomplishment, just enjoyment. Like, man, that's why we're there. How to seek your double-digit tog. Again, spend more time on the water. Try to spend more time on the water. Make more trips, okay? Last year, I had a boat chartered every Saturday and Sunday from November 15th till the middle of January, and also the entire month of April. I literally had 2 boats every single weekend, and I also had a couple of trips during the week sometimes when I can get on certain boats. It helps with the weather, whatever. Now it's reaching the point, it's a little bit too much for me, so I'm just chartering 1 day a week right now. But it's just a little too much between work and everything. When you do get a chance to go out on the water, make sure you stay focused. Work hard. Okay. Keep these disciplines even when it's difficult. Remember why you're there. You're going to get cold. You're going to get tired. It might be a nasty, miserable day. And maybe it's the last 5 minutes of the trip. We're going to be heading in soon, but you're just looking for that one bite, man. That one bite will change your entire day. It may change your entire life, man.
Hey,
you get a new PB, you'll be on your ride home, man. All your friends are calling you up, who's congratulating you on Facebook, and it's great. It's something that the Togger community really celebrates together.
Yeah, and it's hard to describe, but it's just like in any fish, really. I mean, just getting that big fish that you're after, it just changes it changes the chemicals in your brain. I mean, it just like anything else, it just makes you feel accomplished and happy and fishing does that for you anyway. Even if you just catch some small fish, you're out there fishing, you feel good, but there's something about you want this big fish, whatever species it is, and you finally get it because all the pieces came together and you work towards it. It's hard to describe.
It can really give you a huge sense of belonging too. If you're a little fish guy and you're working for that big fish, when you get that first big fish, man, it's like, wow, I belong here,
Yeah, finally did something right.
When you do get a chance and you are on that deck, and you're probably not going to know everybody on the boat, be humble. You never know who's on the other side of the deck. You never know. You don't want to be that guy out there beating your chest, talking about all these fish you caught, bouncing your shiny sinker, catching dogfish, and I'm up there throwing 7-pounders at your feet. I wouldn't want to be that guy. When you want to go fishing and you want to get some charter spots, contact high-end captains. Call these captains that I talked about. Be realistic and be easy to deal with and earn your spot when you get on the boat. Don't call Jerry Pastorino and say that you want the second Saturday in December. It's not going to be available. When you ask him what's available, when he tells you he has Thursday that week, you say yes and you take it. You write the check and you send it to Marie, and then you get your buddies to go on this trip. Because if you tell him, I got to get guys, let me see who's got to go to work, you need different guys. You got to, if you're a charter master, you have to figure these things out, and you have to be realistic that what days you're going to take, and you have to earn your spot. When you get there, it's you and your crew's job to do your very best to catch big fish and to limit out. You need to make that captain and that boat look very good. When you are on the boat, bring exact change and tip very well. Okay, it's easy. Bring a couple hundreds, bring some 20s, some 10s. Try to make it easy on everybody at that point in the day. Don't be stubborn and don't be hard-headed. If you ask for help, like I said, take it, or at least try to take it. Let it sink in a little. Keep in mind that fish want what they want. They do not care what you did last year 100 miles away, and in Rhode Island this was working and I was trying to do it in this jig, and
they don't even care what you're doing an hour or two ago sometimes.
They don't. The way I fish in Cape May is entirely different than the way I fish up in Point Pleasant. Can some of these skills be transferable? Yes, but watch what the captain's doing. Watch what rig the captain is using, and maybe rig that way. Don't go up there and think he's wrong, and you're going to go up there and show him how right you are, because you're going to have a long day. Recently, I have a couple things to share from a couple very high-end fishing friends of mine. One of them is from Dennis Mullenforth. We were texting the other day about his excellent fishing trip. And Dennis brought up this point. He said, consistency and proper mindset is key. Keep the discipline, keep focused, keep working hard. Consistency and proper mindset is key.
The second you stop that path of keeping your mind set on what you're doing, I guarantee you that's when the biggest fish of your life is going to break your heart.
Or you're just going to miss the bite. You're going to go in and start eating your sandwich. Well, I'll eat a sandwich when I'm out there. I'll get a drink when the captain's hauling the anchors. When he's pulling the hooks in, I'll go up there and grab a bite, sit down. When he takes that boat off plane and he's slowing down and he's getting ready to drop the hooks, I'm back there. I'm getting my crabs. I'm in my spot.
Yeah.
When he says boop, I'm dropping in.
Yeah.
The next quote is from Alex Cortizo. Alex MVP is another phenomenal big fish guy. And I'm going to share this with you because it means a lot. Alex says the catching part is the easier part for guys who target big fish. It's always the same guys who catch the big ones while other anglers are catching shorts with a jumbo mixed in every once in a while. The info that I share in my seminars with people reduces the learning curve tremendously for the newer breed. It's the captains who are able to park the boat over this productive bottom that truly deserve all the credit. I can't underestimate that enough, man. These guys are so good, and what they do running that boat and getting us bait and everything they do to let us have the day of our lives, I do the easy part.
Oh yeah.
We get a chance to get on these boats and have this excellent shot. And this is really, and Alex really summed it up. That's really, they deserve all the credit.
They're doing the important part. They're doing the hard part. If you go with a captain that doesn't know how to do his part of that, you no chance.
Right.
You don't have a chance.
A couple takeaways for you. A couple things to remember that'll really help your game. One of them is have 2 rods ready all day. I have 2 pro toggers with the same reels, same top shots. They both have the same rigs on them. If one gets stuck, I grab the other one. I keep fishing. It helps me spend more time in the water. Team up with the mate. Make sure that he knows when you're stuck in the bottom, the mate's going to grab your rod, come over and give you the rod with the sinker on it and ready to go. He takes the stuck rod and gets it unstuck for you, and you're baiting up and you're already back in the water. If he busts you off, he grabs your hook, he rigs it up, he puts a new sinker on and puts it back in the rod holder ready for you. So work closely with the mate and tip them very well. Never pump the rod. Never pump the rod. If you want to lose fish, pump the rod. I don't care if you're excited or what do not pump. You're not short stroking a yellowfin on a bent butt rod. You're just not. So just calm down and give up pumping. Learn to fish a slack line. Very important. Sinker bouncers. People that bounce sinkers on the bottom will sometimes, if a guy fishes too tight, he could ruin the bite for that entire side of the boat.
Oh, yeah.
If you are fishing close to a sinker bouncer and you can't get to the other side of the boat, cast up current, cast as far away as you can from him because he could ruin the bite. Sound underwater, just that constant unnatural sound of that sinker bouncing and bouncing. It's an unnatural sound. And sometimes if you're bouncing it on sand, it's no big thing. But if you're bouncing it on rocks or on a steel wreck, those vibrations and sound will make the fish know something is weird's going on. Yeah. Sound travels 10 times as fast through water as it does through the air. But more importantly, it travels 100 times as far. So you don't need much to make these already skittish fish kind of weird.
Yeah, I've seen guys ruin the bite for the whole small boat doing that. And you try to tell them. I mean, I don't know if I'd recommend it, but maybe when they're not looking, you just cut their line.
I've had it where I'm looking, I'm like, bro, you going to stop bouncing that sinker sometime today, or are you just going to catch dogfish all day? But anyway, to wrap the seminar up, if they can go, let them go. And I hope I see everybody on the water because I really do enjoy it. And I really hope this lets some people get some new personal best fish, and I hope it helps them get some big fish, and so they can celebrate it like we all do, except for Joe. Sorry.
I think Joe is this year's Joe's year. I think if we get out, thank you so much again for doing this. It's great. I hope anyone that is serious about upping their tog game takes all this to heart. At least as a stepping stone, somewhere to start, like taking that leap from just being a tog fisherman, going out there hoping you catch a couple of keepers versus I want to catch those big ones and I want to catch more than one. I want to do it consistently. I want to have a chance every time I go,
Well, that's what I call a togger. I mean, there's guys that go togging. Guys that are toggers, I know there's probably about, I can name them in each state. There's probably maybe 60 guys or so up and down the coast that are legit toggers. They're not casual guys that go out blackfishing. It's like they live it, they breathe it. You know what I mean? They live and die for this. And they're the guys that, like I said, they don't need this. But the guys that go out and they drop their bait to the bottom and they get a big fish. Okay, they set their rod. Now look at this. They set their rod. They're in this position, right? Now this is bad. The only bad things can happen here because they're already out of position. So they have to lower their rod, and the fish is now swimming into the wreck. And now they're putting their hand on the reel, and the fish is in the wreck. And they go, he broke me off again. And you'll see the same guys do the same thing over and over. And it's just like a mechanical defunct. Like, bro, what are you doing? You're good. He's on. He's in. Oh, he's swimming in the wreck. Oh, he broke me off again. This is the kind of thing that, like, I just hope to try to like click it in somebody's mind at how mechanically you can give yourself an advantage, or you can just lose every big fish and just.
Some people cannot be helped in a lot of aspects of life, but it really bothers me in fishing when guys just refuse to like learn. And I've said it before, being stubborn in fishing is the worst thing you could be. You can't do it. You get stuck in your ways unless you've perfected something or have so much experience where like you've changed what you do to make every little piece of it work. Like for you, for example, with tog fishing, done it so much, you put these seminars together based on a lot of trial and error. Someone else coming into it, sticking to the ways they learned. If I stuck to the way that I first learned it, I'd be a failure at it. You can't do it until you get to that level. And it's just, you can't be stubborn in any fishing. You can't do it. You can't get stuck in your ways until you've, at least near perfected every aspect of it.
And like I was saying, these toggers that I'm talking about, these guys I don't want to offend them. They don't need to learn anything from me. I learn from them. These guys are the best of the best. I'm not going to tell them how to set the hook. I'm not going to tell them what kind of rod to use. But a guy who's trying to get into it, a guy who's trying to up his game, a guy who's really trying to learn, bro, you're like Alex said, you're going to go so far down the learning curve if you can kind of absorb these things. And I know it's a lot, and try to remember it, and maybe view the video and go on a tog trip and then come in and view it again. A simple thing like having the right rod and the right reel and the right line, man, mechanically, you're going to jump 75% over the learning curve. And all the guys that are letting their fish get stuck in the wreck, and it's like you're going to bypass all that. That's why Alex said there's so many younger guys that are going to surpass the catches that we have because of this information that I'm sharing so freely. I'm sharing things that took me 30 years to figure these things out.
It's like we really appreciate it. We really appreciate you doing this.
Believe me, Joe, it's my honor. I'm really glad to help you.
And the beauty of it is now that it's on a video and it's on the podcast.
Go watch it.
Anyone can go back. They don't have to wait for Frank to do, maybe next year when Frank does a seminar again, I'll go again because I forgot some of the things he said, or I forget what he said about this or whatever. Now you can go back and you can literally go to whatever, something about the rigging. Let me fast forward to that part. Like, that's where technology really shines. And I mean, and Frank didn't have to do this and do the podcast, but like, we appreciate that you want to do it and help other people. And we can't thank you enough for that.
Thank you very much.
Thanks,
Deuce is hiding back there too. You can't see him.
Believe it or not, I really appreciate the opportunity to share.
Awesome.
And I really, it's not a secret. I want to share everything with everybody. I want everybody to enjoy this kind of success. And I hope they all respect the fishery, and I hope they appreciate it. You know what I mean? I'm not looking for guys to come in and start sending me, 50 different letters of how I'm doing everything the wrong way. I just, again, I'm trying to help people. I'm not trying to critique them or criticize them. I really want to see them get the ball over the goal line. I want to see them all get them double-digit fish.
And like, there are guys that do like to keep secrets, which is fine. But what I always say is, if people aren't successful at whatever the fishery is, like, it's going to die off. Less people are going to do it. Unless information is shared in the fishing community, it keeps people involved. It keeps people loving it. It keeps people, because they're successful at it. Mm-hmm. So it only helps grow the community. It helps fishing live on. I mean, it seems ridiculous to say it, but if people stop being successful at fishing, let's just say everyone kept all their stuff secret. They kept all their fishing information secret, right? And the next generation, we're not sharing anything with them. Like, let them figure it out themselves. Maybe they go out a couple times, can't figure it out, can't find any information on it. This is too hard. I'm not doing this. Starts dropping off. Less anglers each generation. Next thing you know, there's not enough people fishing. Tackle shops can't stay in business. Right. Tackle shops are gone. I mean, it sounds ridiculous, but fishing could be gone without sharing information if you think about it.
Like when you get the guys running the super pools and, it's going to be this big pool. And you go out there and obviously there's like a boatload of Sharpies, but when it might be a little bit disingenuous when maybe the guy that's running that is like actually making money off of it. Like it's kind of like a little bit of a knock. Like, why, bro, it's not always about making money. It's, let's try to let other people get the enjoyment out of it that we all get, Yeah. And you can't really set conditions on it. It's, everybody's going to get there their own way.
Well, Frank, we can't thank you enough. I don't know what to say. Can't wait to fish with you again.
Yeah, hopefully we get. Now you said you're doing a little bit fewer trips, but hopefully there's still room for us on a couple of them. Whenever you have room, someone drops off last second or anything, hit us up. Or if you only have one spot, hit me up. Joe's probably working anyway.
I'll get the list over to you for sure. Thanks for having me on. It was very, very cool.
Absolutely. Anytime you come back, anytime you want to talk about fluke another time, anytime, you're welcome on here anytime.
We'll be back next week as regular.
And we do have a special guest next week.
Oh.
You don't ever look at the list, do you?
No idea.
You got Jim Hutchinson coming on next.
Is it? Oh, I knew he was close. I didn't know.
He never looks at my list.
No, I don't. I don't have Google. All right, we'll be back next week with Jim Hutchinson.
Suffer for the tog.